Okay, welcome to our February board meeting, and thank you for joining us today. Ms. Gaynor, please introduce our guest.
I am Miss Gaynor today.
Ms. Barrow, please introduce our.
It was news to me also. She's actually taking one of our ex-regents back to the airport, so. Okay. Just breathe. Over in the corner is Dr. David Carlston. He's chairman of the Faculty Senate. We have Heather Baker, our student government observer. Melody Coffey is the student government president. Chris Stovall is our new controller. Mr. Charlie Carr is director of athletics.
New athletic.
Dr. Ruth Morrow has this really long title that ends in Bolin Chair, Distinguished Chair of Piano, and she's will be visiting with you later. Dr. Deborah Garrison is Vice President for Academic Affairs and Dean of the Graduate School.
I think I'm an associate.
Associate Vice President. Michelle Dixon and Ricky Scruggs are here from KFDX TV. Dawn Fisher is the Interim Director of Human Resources. Cindy Ashlock is Executive Assistant to the President. Kyle Owen is Associate Vice President for Facility Services. Valerie Maxwell is Director of Budget Management. Reagan Foster is Secretary Treasurer of the Staff Senate. And Dirk Welch is President or Chairman of the Staff Senate. Mike Taylor is our new internal auditor, and Barry Maka is our ever faithful general counsel.
Well done. Well done. Thank you. Well done. Mr. Sanchez and Ms. Burks are connected by telephone today. You guys there?
We're here.
Fantastic.
I'm here too.
Perfect. Just a reminder, we are being streamed live on the internet. Please remember that. Please silence or turn off your cell phones and be aware that side discussions around the table or the room are distracting and may be heard through the live feed microphones. As a side note, I was standing in this room earlier as they were setting this up, and you can hear everything. So just be aware of that.
Uh-oh.
We provide an opportunity for public comment concerning agenda items at the beginning of each meeting. No one is signed up to speak, and we'll move on with our agenda. You got it. Okay, here we go. Item 1442, discussion of higher education issues. This is our opportunity to discuss current issues and trends in higher education, good and bad. I'll start us today. I just want to remind everyone we will be talking about tuition and fees later, and Jesse, you will remind us as well. One of the things we're going to talk about is fixed tuition, and as a reminder, there was a mandate from the Texas State Legislature. That's why this is being driven this way. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that, and the administration can fill in the gaps on some of those rules, and we'll cover that later. But I did want to make sure you're aware of that. As always, security continues to be a topic of discussion in this day and age on campuses. We had our own situation come up this past weekend. I think it was handled pretty well. Chief Williams and his team should be commended. I think there was clearly some confusion, but I think the confusion was generated about the social media that was kicking around, and that was a little disappointing. But by the same token, I think that Chief Williams and his team did a great job of getting to the bottom of what was going on there, because as you all know, since our last board meeting, we've had at least 2 incidents that I'm aware of on Purdue and OU's campus that weren't nearly as good an outcome. So anybody else have anything at all? I mean, there's always topics in the higher education world out there, and you know, we could talk about continuing costs rising and things like that, but we've talked about that in the past. So is there anything on anybody's mind about higher education topics at this time?
I had not told you that I would, but I had just thought about it. I'm leaving early Monday morning to chair a panel in Austin at a one-day conference on basically higher education in the 21st century. There's a lot going on. We see a lot of changes coming, and in terms of everything, as you've already mentioned, from the cost of higher education to getting more people through the higher education system. And one of the major decisions we're talking about is the role of core learning that we talked about today in higher education because more and more young people today are moving into the professional fields. And so there is a running debate about the role of general learning, general education for everyone that we have to settle in on. So I'll be happy to be part of that, and I'm eager to see how the conference turns out. And I'll probably have a report on that in May. Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else have anything they want to kick around the table before we get rolling here? One thing I'll say before we move on, if you'll notice, and please remember this, tomorrow we start at 8:30. That's not a typo. My fault. I have to get back to Fort Worth for a meeting, so I asked Debbie if we could start a little bit early. So it is all about me, Kenny, and I apologize for that. I'll remind you again at the end of the day, but
Surprise, it's not a surprise.
is it not? Okay. So moving on. Item 1443, Legacy Walk. As you are aware, Legacy Walk was established during MSU's 75th anniversary to honor individuals who have significantly affected the future of MSU through service and financial support. As you can see in your folder, the administration has recommended adding 2 individuals to Legacy Walk. Dr. Rogers, please comment on these recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, and I think the board knows, we have a committee of university people that make recommendations to include people who meet these criteria into Legacy Walk. We do not put in anyone every year, but this year I am particularly delighted to recommend to you for your vote that we induct Ms. Martha Fain into the Legacy Walk. Many of you know Martha. She's a generous donor to a wide variety of programs at the university, ranging from women's athletics to her latest significant gift was a wonderful new Fain instrumental music building. Her philanthropic work really follows that of her mother, Minnie Ray Wood, who gave so much to this university, and I'm delighted to recommend her for this honor. Another that many of you met today and got to talk to is Mac Kennedy. Mac graduated from MSU in 1967 with a BBA in accounting. He's a partner with Freeman Shepherd and Story, and he's either a trustee or a chair of the Bridwell, the Edwards, and the Fain Foundations, and he is also chair of the Board of Trustees of the MSU Trust. He has done much for this university through service and through his generosity with the university. Please read his resume that's included in this program. You can see that Mac is really a civic leader, and I'm delighted to recommend him to you to be included in our Walk of Honor.
I don't have his resume, but I'll be glad to get it.
Oh, I have it. Okay. Good deal. We'll be happy to get you the
So
resume.
ask Jesse for a copy.
Sorry.
Everything right.
I didn't know.
Let them know it. What did you?
Yeah, they were looking.
All right.
Okay.
Could I have a motion to approve the addition of Matt Kennedy and Martha Fain to Legacy Walk as presented?
Move.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion on this matter? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item is Dr. Rogers' performance review and executive session. We're going to hold off on this till later today or possibly tomorrow, depending on how we get through the agenda. So we'll get on that a little later in the meeting. We'll now move to committee business. Today we're going to move to academic and student affairs committee first to accommodate some schedules for the presenters. I told you, Charlie, we can get athletics up to the front one of these days. Dr. Givens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Academic and Student Affairs Committee will now come to order. Members of the committee joining me today are Mr. Bryant, and on the telephone, Mr. Sanchez and Ms. Burks. Because of the schedule, we're going to take up item 14-57 first, our faculty report. Dr. David Carlston, Chairman of the MSU Faculty Senate, will present his report and introduce a special guest to us that we've already developed a fine appreciation for.
All right, well, first thing that the faculty would like to do is thank the board for bringing the warm weather. Awfully
No
cold, so
problem.
we appreciate the warmth.
As Kenny pointed out, it's all about me.
There we go. one of the things that Dr. Gibbons approached us about last board meeting that we were really excited about is having a faculty member present, and so you get a chance to get to know the faculty as well, and you've had a chance to get to know Dr. Moreau, and she was introduced earlier when she played. I'm going to give her an opportunity to kind of share with you some thoughts about her teaching and some of her experiences, and then after that we'll go ahead and give the rest of the faculty report. Dr. Moreau.
Thank you, David. And thank you for the opportunity to be here. For me, it is always a pleasure to make music, not in a practice room, but to share with people. That, I believe, is the role that music has. As a teacher, I feel that the biggest thing I can give anyone is curiosity. You know, to help them go from where they are, and sometimes that takes finding out really where we are. You know, taking the blinders off of where we want to be or where we see ourselves, you know, when I maybe did wear that dress size, but not anymore. And, you know, and so that then I can go somewhere else. So it's as true for me as for my students. I practice what I preach. My students need to see me doing what I'm asking them to do. I practice at school a great deal, so they hear me playing under tempo. They hear me taking this itty bitty bit and kind of mining it for shape and musicality and fingering and all those things, because they need to know that these are lifelong learning. It's not something that they just do until they reach a point and then they don't have to think anymore, because we're always thinking, hopefully always growing, always improving. So I think of myself as a guide more than a teacher, although one is the other, in that I can only go where someone's willing to go. And so sometimes it's opening people up, letting them hear new possibilities. I work with inner aesthetics. You know, music sometimes has a hard road in that you can't hold it. Yes, you can hold the CD, and I hope you enjoy the CD. It's actually, it starts with ragtime. There's a little bit of some classical music, including some from living composers. So those last two tracks, you know, you may either love them or hate them, but then you can just go off. You know, you don't have to get there. There's always, what we do is control, which sometimes has a bad rap, but we have to control. Otherwise we wouldn't get up, you know, the right leg wouldn't follow the left leg, but it's how we control. So helping, you know, discover tension and find out how can we actually instead use freedom, you know, get there easily. So they may get tired of me saying it, but our job is to figure out how to make it easy. Doesn't mean that it will necessarily sound easy, but that if I can't play with ease, what you get is like, oh, she's working really hard. And that's not what I want. I want you to hear the music, and I'm the medium for that at the moment. And so through that, I hope I give confidence, you know, for the students as they go on their journey. So besides that, I love performing. I love presenting, talking about both teaching and different types of music, different avenues of music. I've kind of fallen into this ragtime. There's a lot of people who actually write ragtime now. And the easiest way to explain it is Joplin on steroids. So the first piece on your CD is actually called The Nightmare Rag Fantasy. It's by a man who taught at the University of Michigan for a number of years. And it really is, it's long, it's about 12 minutes. You know, so it's much longer than a normal rag. And there's actually a quiz. I'm not going to tell you this. The main theme is based on a well-known cartoon theme. And if there's a sheet inside the CD that explains each piece, and you have to turn it upside down to see which cartoon theme it is. But this summer I'm going to Madrid to present at a humanities conference. I've been doing some research on the necessary multitasking that we do at the piano. You know, right hand and left hand do different things, but work together. We also read two different clefs. So there's, multitasking, came on great guns, and then we realized, oh, this isn't quite so good. But we have to do it. So what I'm trying to do is find out what are best practices for this. And so I'll be presenting that. In the past, I've presented in Budapest 2 years ago at the International Society of Music Educators in Thessaloniki, Greece. I've been artist in residence twice for a week. Once for the city of Gisborne, New Zealand, where I played in the schools, actually played with their youth orchestra, played ragtime for people who'd never heard it before, which was wonderful. I played in a Maori school, in an elementary school. I played for them and they danced for me. So to see little second graders doing and sticking the tongues out and all that. And at the end of it, there was this Maori boy who came up to me and he gave me a kiwi, which is the name for a New Zealand dollar. It's a coin. And part of me wanted to give it back because I know how little money they have. But he wanted to give it to me, and I still have it. And I will treasure that because it really meant a lot that he wanted to do that. I also, a year ago Thanksgiving, went to the island of Grenada. We have a number of Caribbean students, and one of them is an alum, a piano student, and so she kind of put together, again, I played in the schools, I gave a concert to which it kind of scared me at first, the equivalent of President Obama came. And that is something that I hope to foster. We think of easy access to music. There are now resources on the internet. I can go and print out so many different things and just download it, and they don't have that access. So I'm hoping to go back with quite a bit of music that I'm trying to cull. Those of you who've seen my office know that it's getting better. It's getting better. And some of that, if I can get rid of some of that music and take it places where they really, can use it, it will be of so much benefit. Other research interests include the incorporation of world music with what we call classical music, because music is music, and to appreciate all of them without barriers gives us a greater appreciation of all of them in their individuality and collectively. And then the last, and this may seem kind of odd, but I've done a fair amount of research on silence. Silence is a necessary part of music. It's the punctuation. It kind of makes what we play meaningful by having those moments where it's not there. But I also have become a labyrinth walker, and there's a worldwide labyrinth locator. So I've actually had the opportunity to walk the labyrinth in Chartres. And can I say, Dr. Rogers, may I say a dream about some of the land that's not being used on the other side of Sykes Lake? I would love to see a labyrinth that we could actually make. Somewhere where students can go and de-stress and where we can be alone in a crowd. There's so many things, our world has become so fast-paced that sometimes being able to step back is something that I think all of us can use. And I get to do that when I practice. So to forward that to everyone. I thank you for the time. I actually do have a 2 o'clock class, and I'm probably over my allotted 5 minutes to speak to you, but I thank you for the opportunity, and I also thank you for all your work and dedication to Midwestern, because we exist in a better place because of the Board of Regents. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a great reminder, one, of the energy that the faculty have, right? And sometimes we enjoy the lack of traffic here in Midwestern and here in Wichita in the small town environment. But really, the reality is we have faculty that are making a difference across the world. That not only are they impacting the students' lives here, but they're taking what they know elsewhere. We're just very bad at promoting that, right? So I appreciate Dr. Moe coming in and the opportunity to highlight some of the faculty efforts on campus. We're going to do this regularly throughout the year, and we'll have next board meeting. We'll have the winner of the MSU Faculty Award, Mitzi Lewis. She'll come in and address everybody for a few minutes. I just want to take just a couple minutes to talk. Last Board of Regents meeting, there was a question in terms of the charge was given to talk a little bit about how the faculty is involved in recruiting and how we help in that regard. There are a couple of events that are coming up organized through Dr. Lamb's office, and Mustangs Rally and Discover MSU. The names change, but basically the faculty has been invited to sit down with students, prospective students, with their families, and talk to them about the MSU experience and share the things that are unique to Midwestern, which really the individual attention and the opportunity to work closely and be known by PhD faculty members that are concerned with your life and again, like Dr. Moore was saying, helping you get to the next step, whatever that may be, is a really unique opportunity. So we appreciate those opportunities. We've helped out a number of times. I know a couple weekends I've been in talking to football recruits and athletes that are coming into the university. So we've been and anywhere that we have an opportunity and are invited, we'd love to reach out and talk to those new students. A couple of things that we're excited about, Dr. Garrison through the Teaching, Learning, Research Center is putting together a celebration of teaching. Again, one of the neat things about Midwestern State is that we are a teaching university. We have opportunities for undergraduates to be involved closely in research projects with their faculty and with other individuals, but students come to the university primarily to learn. And so Dr. Garrison's putting together a small publication of the research that the faculty has done on teaching pedagogy, right? And bringing the faculty together to be able to talk about that. One of the things that I think there's a lot of energy on campus among the faculty is developing the faculty members individually and as a whole in terms of our teaching. And so there's initiatives to do team teaching where students are concurrently put in courses so that the material can overlap and references can be made. I know Dr. Jun and Dr. Giles in the humanities are really encouraging interdisciplinary learning. They've put together a roster or a list of interests, research and teaching interests, and distribute that to the faculty abroad so that we can invite each other to come in and guest lecture so that students not only learn material and can check boxes and check degree plans, but can learn to think about topics and concerns from a variety of different positions and from different perspectives. So we're very excited about where we're going in terms of our teaching and the energy that we have in that regard. We also, just really briefly, we're in the middle of the throes, I don't want to steal Dr. Stewart's thunder, but we're in the throes of completing the HARRY, which you all had approved, which is a survey conducted through UCLA, which will help us understand better what we do in our teaching on campus, across the campus, so that we can plan better faculty development activities. So we're very excited with where things are going. We're grateful for the work that's being done through admissions and with Noel Levitt's help, through athletics, and obviously through the provost's office. So this is a time of good excitement for the faculty. I could go on, but I won't. If y'all have questions faculty related, I'd love to answer them. I will put one little plug in as we look to build new and greater things. It would be great for the faculty to further promote this collaborative learning and development of teaching if there was a portion of one of these new structures that was dedicated to some space for faculty development and for faculty issues and affairs. So just I'm going to put that little plug in there as we start to put that out. Thank you, Dr. Givens, for the time and for the rest of the board for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Carlston. We certainly appreciate the comments by you and Dr. Moreau, and appreciate her taking the time to do that. We will move to item 14-56, the approval of the minutes of our committee meeting held November 7th, 2013. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, they will stand approved as presented. Item 14-58 is the staff report. Our report today will be given by Mr. Dirk Welch, who's chairman of the MSU Staff Senate. Mr. Welch.
Well, good afternoon, and Dr. Givens, if I might ask, could we be bumped down a bit? We likewise have a couple of people that we're expecting to come in that we wanted to share with you, not to speak, but to introduce, and I'd let them know.
Sure.
And I hope they'll be here soon.
Sure, we'll come back to that. Okay. Item 14-59 is the student government report. Our report today will be given by Student Government President Melody Coffey.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. So this semester the student government is really working on kind of finishing off a lot of the initiatives we've been working on for the past few semesters, and one of the biggest ones is the recycling initiative, which a lot of you know about and you're starting to see more and more of. So one of the biggest things I'm so excited about is I checked all the hydration stations on campus today. Well, I didn't get to the Wellness Center, but all the other ones are almost at 20,000 water bottles saved. So that is a lot of water bottles that we are saving by having those on campus. The second thing that's also popping around campus is in the CSC and the residence hall are the recycling bins that are easily accessible in all the general areas. You can recycle anything that goes into the orange bins too. And so with that, it's just really promoting that green campus is a really good thing with our recycling initiative, and we're just keep going. So along with that greener campus, we are going to be promoting Earth Week with Student Development Orientation Office this year. It's in April, so y'all probably be hearing more about that. Another really strong piece of legislation that we've been working on is the homecoming election procedure, and we went through the trial run of our first new election procedure, which really works on a fair point system and promoting a well-rounded candidates to come into the homecoming elections and have that different perspective. So with that, we did revise it with the little mistakes here and there that just we couldn't see until homecoming actually happened. So we're ready to get that passed, and hopefully that'll be in place for a while because it's a really good system. This semester we've also began a Faculty, Staff, and Senate of the Month award. And with this, it really shows that appreciation for the hard work of our senators and for the faculty and staff that we really want to appreciate. So with that, we'll give them like a little Airmark gift card and just help them say that we do appreciate anyone, especially the senators who vote on them. They really have seen their hard work come out. And Heather actually received the first Senator of the Award month from us. So we really hope that that thrives because that thankfulness is really good to keep up. We've also just been involved with being that student opinion base for the master planning and for tuition fees and all that. So we really invite anyone to speak about anything happening. We are encouraging, every meeting we encourage the senators to vote on people that they might want to hear from. So you might be expecting a call from me, or even if you are just interested in coming to hear about student opinion, or if you have anything that students should be hearing about, then please let us know. We are open to anyone coming to our meetings, and we're excited for the rest of the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Conley. We'll now go back to item 14-50. 8, thank you. The staff report.
Well, thank you. And they came in the door right as I was saying that. So I appreciate your all's flexibility greatly. Well, I do want to recognize Ms. Reagan Foster. As she was introduced earlier, she is our Secretary and Treasurer of Staff Senate. She does a great job keeping us humming along and financially stable, so we appreciate her work. She will provide a few words in just a bit to introduce the folks that we're pleased to have with us. But I want to thank you, Dr. Givens, and the board for giving the Staff Senate the opportunity to bring in folks that the Staff Senate has recognized and join us in our report. And we're pleased to have our two most recent You Make a Difference Award recipients here. And in May, we hope to introduce you to additional You Make a Difference Award recipients, as well as our spring Staff Senate Scholarship folks. So, as always, we greatly appreciate your support and enthusiasm for Staff Senate, and I'll let Reagan take it from here.
Good afternoon. I want to say, first off, as an alumni of this university and employee, I am appreciative of the work of this body and what you do for us, our students first, our faculty, and our staff. So thank you very much, and thank you for this opportunity. The Staff Senate meets once a month, and we like to be informed about the different issues that are going on the campus, not only so we can report back to those around us, but so that we can support those issues. In December, we had Dr. Garrison come and speak to us about the different things and the exciting things going on in the graduate school, and the things that we can do as a staff to help further those things. Actually, this past Wednesday, Dr. Farrell came and spoke to us about the money that we've been given, the things that we need, how well we are supported by donors not only here in this local community, but all over the state and the United States. And we were excited to hear about the things that are happening. our special guest that we have with us today, I must say, we have a beautiful campus, and our facility services are such an important and integral part of how our campus looks and the things that we do. So I'd like to first introduce Ms. Delia Gonzalez. And she was nominated for always keeping her building clean. She's always smiling, she's willing to help. She has a positive attitude when she's asked to help with others' tasks, and she's a valuable asset to not only the custodial department, facility services, I'm sure, and this university. So thank you for being here today. Ms. Mertza Reyes was also nominated. She's done an outstanding job. She's looking over 2 buildings right now during a transition process. She works hard and south to keep this beautiful building clean, such an important part of our campus and Memorial Hall. We have staff in these buildings. They tell us how pleased they are with her work, and she's very nice and polite to everyone. So again, thank you. On behalf of the staff, on behalf of the university, we appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Welch, and we appreciate you bringing the group on and introducing us and letting us have an opportunity to see what they've done. Our next item is 14-60, Athletics Report. Our Director of Athletics, Charlie Carr, will present the report. Charlie.
Thank you, Dr. Givens. Brief. I see a lot of smiles. Yes, to see brief. Today I brought one of our many wonderful coaches that I'm just so blessed to have part of our staff. And I say coaches, and I hope that you all understand that our coaches, they are teachers first. They're teachers just like David and everyone else on our faculty and our staff. They work very hard to teach our kids, to our student athletes, our students, and help them grow as people. And I want to share with you real quickly the only difference sometimes, and not all the time, but at least from a coaching standpoint, I will say, as Ruth said, that our athletic music flows very freely, sometimes not stress-free. And Dr. Rogers, we would like to have that labyrinth over across the way. I have a number of coaches that would stand up and be very, very proud and happy to have it. Coaches are sometimes a different breed, and I think you have to understand the shoes in which they walk. All of our occupations, the work that we do, most of the time, if not all the time, it's within us. Coaches carry a personal scoreboard, if not every day, around with them. Everything they do has a scoreboard. And this gentleman is not just Saturday night, but it's there. And I will say that Bill Maskell, our football coach, who's going to speak to you in just a second, is one of the most wonderful people, the greatest values. I can't tell you, your sons and daughters would be just thrilled. You would be thrilled to have your sons and daughters play for him. And that's the highest compliment I can give anybody. He has a great pride about his work, great values, and a tremendous passion. But he and all of our coaches have that scoreboard in the back of their head. They're workaholics. They're driven because they always know that scoreboard is facing them. And I don't think any of us at times, I coached and I've forgotten part of that. But that scoreboard is always there. And many times, most of the populace can go look at it and see how they're doing. So it's a different walk of life. But in this case, and many of our coaches, but especially in Bill, we are so blessed. Kind of like Ruth, as Ruth was saying. We are just blessed to have good people. And this is one of the best. I've never been around coaches like him. I remember, was it last year, I think, we went to West Alabama. And we flew part of the way. And there was one person that was very enthusiastic and very supportive of doing that, and I've never met a coach who would really want to do that. But we drove back home. We drove back home because it saved us some money. And I think that says a lot about Bill. It says a lot about what kind of team player he is and how he does what he does. So his head's going to get too big because I don't like to do that, but I'm proud of him. He's one of our many that we have that are great, great people, and they are outstanding coaches. And this is our best. Bill?
Thank you, Charlie. I've always wondered what went on in this meeting. I guess now I know. It was 12 years ago, March, that I sat right down there at the end of the table, and there was, I know Dr. Farrell was here and Dr. Rogers, and I don't know if there's anybody else that was part of the board or whatever, but I'm glad to have the opportunity to be here. Charlie asked me to talk about our recruiting just a little bit, and I feel like I even know our student here. She was it last spring, wasn't it? Just before she got, can't remember her name, but Shelby. But no, I did. But actually, I did call Shelby because she came over doing just like this young lady and took some pictures of our workout. And that particular day, we went indoors because that was kind of like our last workout or something. And she was over there taking pictures. And then it was like a week later, I read in the student newspaper or in the local paper that she was elected. And so I don't know how I got her phone, or maybe I called her in Petroleum, right? Mm-hmm. And congratulated her. I think we got a great one in her. And I think most everybody else I've had some interaction with over the last 12 years. And Jane has worked so graciously with my wife over there. And my wife probably knows more of you all than I do. But Dr. Morrow, I'm going to hire her tomorrow with her energy and enthusiasm. She was unbelievable. And it was 12 years ago that I had an opportunity to meet Dr. Morrow, and she touched my life because I had a coach that wife was a music teacher, and we were trying to get her hired, and it didn't actually work out, but she's had that energy for a long, long time. Football wise, we just went through a signing period. There's never been a coach of any sport that said we've had a bad recruiting year. Every coach, including me, is going to say we've had a great
February board meeting. Gaynor, please introduce our guest.
I am. She's actually taking one of our ex. Over in the Carlston, he's chairman. We have Heather Baker, our Melody Koff, president. New controller, Charlie Carr's director of athletics. Doug's really long title, Nolan chair, distinguished chair. She's will be visiting. Person is affairs and dean of the associate vice president. Scribes are here from KFDX TV. Don Fisher is the human resources executive assistant to the president. Associate vice presidents for facility services, director of budget management is secretary. And Dirk Welch is staff senate, internal auditor, and very faithful general counsel.
Well done. Well done. Mr. Sanchez, and connected by telephone today. You guys there?
I'm here too.
Just a reminder, live on the internet, silence or turn off your cell phones. Questions around the table, distracting, and maybe heard through live earlier as they were saying everything. So, opportunity for public comment concerning each meeting. No one is signed with our agenda. Here we go. Item 4 of higher education issue to discuss current issues in education. Good. I'll start us. I just want to. We'll be talking about tuition later, and this as well is fixed tuition and the mandate from the Texas State Legislature. That's why. So I just want to make the minister on some of those rules later, but I did want to make, as always, topic of discussion on our own situation. I think it was handled pretty well. Gibbs and his team, I think there was clear the confusion was generated about social media that was kicking around. That was a little disappointing, but Chief Williams and his team did a great getting to the bottom of what was going on there, because as we've had at least 2 in OU's campus, good an outcome. So, have anything at all in the higher education world, and we can costs right and things like that pass. So, is there anything anybody higher education topics at this time?
I had not told you early Monday morning to a panel in Austin on basically century. There's a lot of changes coming, and everything as you've already mentioned to getting more education system and decisions we're talking about is that we talked about today, because more and more young professional fields and running debate about the whole education for everyone to in on. So I'll be happy to see how the conference have a report on that in.
Anybody else? Kick around the table. One, if you'll notice, please at 8:30. My work for a meeting, so you got you. And I apologize for that. Mind you again at the end of the day. Okay, moving on. 43 Legacy Walk, issues 75th anniversary. Who have significantly in service, and the administration has recommended to Legacy Walk. Please comment on these recommendations.
The board knows we have a university people that include these criteria into, but they're delighted to recommend that we induct into the many of you generous donor to the university, Regents athletics to a wonderful new thing. Her philanthropy was that of her mother, who gave so much, to delighted to recommend her honor. Another that you met today and got to talk to Mac Kennedy. Mac graduated in 1967 with Women Shepherd and Story. The Aura Chair in the Fane Foundation's chair of the board of the MSU Trust. He has done much for the service through velocity of the university. That's included in Mac is really a civic. I'm delighted to recommend to be included. To do. We'll be happy to
For a comment.
Everything right.
What is?
Yeah.
All right. Approve the addition of Matt Kennedy as presented.
Move.
Any discussion on this, Matt? We have a motion and a second. All opposed? Rogers performance review, and we're going to hold off on this tomorrow agenda, so we'll get it later in the meeting. To committee business today, academic and student affairs, to accommodate some schedules. It's up to the front one of these days. Dr. Givens.
When the academic and student affairs members of the committee and on the telephone, we're going to take up item 14, faculty report. The Senate will present his report as a special guest to us. The fine appreciation for it.
First thing that the faculty would like to do, appreciate.
That's all about me.
One of the things that last board meeting that a faculty member present, get to know the faculty is get to know Dr. Moreau, and she was here when she played. I'm going to kind of share with you some thoughts of her experiences, and then give the rest of the faculty report.
And thank you for me it is always make music, share with people is the role that music teacher can give anyone, is to help them, and sometimes that takes really where we are off of where we want to see ourselves. We did wear that dress size, but and so that then it's as true for me. I practice what I preach. My students need to see what I'm asking them to do. School a great deal. Hear me taking this, evening it for study and fingering. They need to know learning. It's not something to do until they don't have to think anymore, because hopefully always improving. So I think more than a teacher, I can only willing to opening people possibilities with inner aesthetics. Music would in that you can hold the CD. The CD, it's actually with ragtime. There's a little bit, including some. So those last, you either love them or hate them, but you don't have. What we do is sometimes has a bad rap. Otherwise, we wouldn't follow the left leg. So helping and find out how it's freedom. So they may get tired of to figure out. Doesn't mean sound easy. That if I what you get, like, oh, she's working really hard. I want you to hear the medium for that. And so through that, for the student on their journey, that I presenting, talking, and music, different avenues of music, ragtime. There's a long time now. And the Joplin on steroids. The first piece on your CD, Fantasy. University of Michigan for a number of years. Really is minutes. You know, so it's much reg. And there's actually the main theme is a well-known, and if there's a explains each piece and to see what the is. This summer I'm going to present some research on the that we do at the piano. Left hand do different but work together. We all laugh. Multitasking, came on. Oh, this isn't quite so good. So what I'm trying to for this, presenting that in Budapest, National Society of Music Educators, Greece. I've been artist in residence for a week. Once for the New Zealand, and the schools gave youth orchestra. Heard it before, which was in a Maori school, and they danced for me. 10th graders doing the things out and all that. And there was this, and he gave me a kiwi, the name for a coin. Yeah, because I know how, but he wanted to have it, and I will really meant a lot. That he also a year ago, we have a number. One of them is an alum, and so she and I played in the schools concert to which the equivalent of President came. Is something that I hope to think of to music to the I can go and print out, just download it, and to go back with quite a bit. Try to cull those of you who've seen some of that music and take it places. Can use so much benefit. The music with what because music is music. All of them gives us a greater appreciation for individuality. And it may seem kind of odd. A fair amount of research on silence. Part of music. It's the puncture kind of makes what meaningful by how it's not there. And there's a worldwide labyrinth located. I actually had the opportunity to sharp. Say a dream about it's not being used on the other side to see a labyrinth. Actually make where students can go in decent, or we can be alone in a crowd. So many things our world is that sometimes to step back. Something that I think all practice. So to everyone. I thank you for I actually do have a 2:00 class. I allotted 5. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for all your work and as we exist at Regents. Thank you very, very much.
One and the energy that the faculty, and sometimes we, traffic here in the Midwestern and town environment, that the faculty that are making a difference across. Not only are they impacting the students' lives, and what they know elsewhere, we're just very. So I appreciate the opportunity to highlight some efforts on campus. We're going to do this year, and we'll have the winner of the Mitzi Lewis. She'll come in for a few minutes. Talked last Board of Regents, the little bit about how the faculty is in hope in that regard. Events that are coming up, organized through Mustangs Rally and to you. The names change, but about it to sit down with prospective students, talk to them about the MSU experience unique to Midwestern, which individual attention and the opportunity closely and be known PhD faculty members that are in again get to the next step, whatever that. Appreciate those opportunities. We've helped out a number of times. I know a couple weekends I've been in to football recruits and athletes that have opportunity and are invited. We'd love to those new students. Machine learning research can together a celebration of teaching. Again, one of the neat things about Midwestern State is that we are a teaching university in research projects with their faculty and with other individuals, but students come to Dr. Garrison's putting of the research teaching pedagogy, right? And one of the things as a whole in terms of our teams to do team teaching, students are put in courses so that the material can help. I know Dr. Giles in the humanities are really encouraging interdisciplinary, a roster or a teaching interest to the faculty abroad, so each other to come in and get only learn material check degree plans, but can learn the topics and concerns and from a different perspective about where we're going in terms of our teaching and the energy. We also just really brief middle of the throws. I want to steal of completing the proof, which is a bay, which what we do in our teaching on campus, we can plan better. So we're very excited. We're grateful for missions and athletics, and obviously this is a time of, I could go on, but I have questions faculty related. I'd love to answer them. I will to build new, it would be great to promote this collaboration if there was a new structures that was space for faculty development issues and affairs. So just I'm going to put that little plug in there as we start. Thank you, Dr. Givens, for the listening.
Thank you, Dr. Carlson. Appreciate the comments by you and appreciate her taking the time. We will move to item 14, minutes of our committee meeting held on 13. As presented, 58 is the staff. Today will be given by Mr. Dirk Yu, Staff Senate.
Well, good afternoon, and Dr. Could we be bumped down to come in and speak, but to introduce, I'd let them know.
Back to that, okay. On to the student government report, student government president.
So this semester on kind of finishing off working on for the past few months is the recycling, and you're starting to see one of the biggest things I'm so hydration stations on campus center, but all the other ones, 20,000 water is a lot of water bottles by having those on campus. Thing that's also popping around in the CSC and the residents that are easily out in general areas. You can goes into the orange bins. So with that, it's just a really good thing with our keep going. In our campus, we are going to be development orientation here. It's in April, so we'll about that. Relation that we've been working on is procedure, and we have our first lecture really works on a fair point, well-ran coming elections, and so with that, we did little mistakes here and see until homecoming to get that passed, and hopefully that'll be a system. Also began a Faculty Month Award, and with this, and for the hard work of our senators and for the faculty and staff. So with that, we'll give them and just help them. We do appreciate anyone, senators who vote on them, come out and senator of the award. So we really hope that that's really good to keep up. I'm involved with hearing based for the mission. We really invite anyone. We are meeting, we encourage the people that they might want to hear from. Call for me, or even interested in coming to hear about. If you have anything that students should let us know, we're excited for the rest of the year.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. We'll now go back to item 14. 8, thank you, the staff.
Well, thank you, and they saying that. Well, I do want to Foster as our secretary and treasurer does a great job keeping financially stable. So she will provide a few. I want to thank for giving the staff senate the opportunity to bring as recognized, and we're pleased to have this recent You Make a Difference Award. And in May, we hope to additional You Make a Difference Award winning staff senate scholarship. Always, we greatly appreciate enthusiasm for staff. Reagan, take it from here.
I want to say first off, I am appreciative of the work of this body, and things first, our faculty so much, and thank you for this opportunity. We meet once a month, and we like to be informed about the different campus, not only so we can support those issues. Dr. Garrison come and speak to us, things and the exciting things going on, and we're and to help further those things. Wednesday, Dr. Farrell came and spoke to the money that we've made, how well we are supporting here in this local community, and we were excited to hear. Our special guest, I must say, our facility services are such a part of how our campus looks. And the first introduced Ms. Delia Gonzalez, nominated for always smiling. She's willing to help when she's asked to help with other assets to not only the custodians, I'm sure, and this university. Ms. Mertza Reyes, she's done an outstanding 2 buildings right now she works hard and cleans such an important part. We have staff with her work, and she's very nice. And thank you on behalf of the staff, on behalf of the
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Well, bringing the group on an opportunity to see what they've done. Our next item is 14, our Director of Athletics.
Today, one of us, so blessed to have, and I hope that our coaches, David and everyone else in our staff, they work to teach our kids, our students. Real quick, the only difference, sometimes, at least I will say, as Ruth said, our athletic music flows sometimes, and have that labyrinth. It would stand up and be very sometimes a different, and I think you have to in which they walk. Our occupations, not all the time. Coach a personal school board every day with them. Everything, and this gentleman Saturday night. Maskell, our football coach, just a second, is one of the wonderful people. The greatest, I can't tell you, you would be thrilled to have play for him. And that's something that I can give anybody. He has a great and a tremendous passion. But they're workaholic, they're driven, always know that school, and I don't think any of us at times, I coach part of that, but it's always there. And many times, populace can go look at it. So it's a walk of life. In this case, and many of our coaches, we are so blessed. Kind of like Ruth was saying, have good people, the best. I've never been around coaches like him. Was it last year? West, and we flew. A person that was very enthusiastic who would really want to drove back home because it saved us some money. That says a lot about Bill, and how he does. So I'm not gonna get too big because I don't like to. He's one of our many people, and they are, and this is our best.
Charlie, wondered what went on. Now I know. 12 years ago, Mark sat right down there at the end of the table. I know Dr. Farrell was here, and I don't know if there's anybody that was part of the. I'm glad to have Charlie asked me to recruit him just a little bit, and even know our student here before she got Shelby. But no, I did because she came over and took some pictures of our workout. We went kind of like our last workout or something, and she was over there. Later, I read in the student the paper elected, and so I called her and congratulated her. And I think most everybody else I've had some of the last 12 years, and so graciously with my wife, I mean, knows more of you all than I. Dr. Morrow, I'm going to hire her enthusiasm. She was, and it was 12 years ago to meet Dr. Morrow, and because I had a coach that was a teacher, and we were trying to get actually work out, but she's a long time. We just went through a science of any sport, a bad recruiting year, including me, is going to say we've had a great. Cannot determine that it isn't into. The freshmen coming in probably aren't good impact. Now, if in Texas, and some kids that are going to play next year, all those Division I kids goes right out of high school, right in. Kids that we get are usually not as tough, and but they're not generally going to as big as the other guys. So we've got to do a good job here and start right now. And you know, you hate to break it to them while you recruit, but once they get here, all they're good players here. It takes them about a year to get them. A year ago, able to, we'll start tomorrow morning to find out in terms of attitude and effort and competitiveness and all. But we signed 2 local. You think have a chance to play next? Some right here locally, a rider, light build kid, but he can run. Now, whether you're 2 years old, if I got going against, I should be able to step. The other kids. That reminds me of our running back, about 5'9", he's about 2'3", is fast. As a kid that I think, now if he doesn't, that's okay. Recently, by sports editor, she signed a lot of linemen. We signed 5 offensive, about, what was it, 7 or 8? Okay. 9. Actually, we signed 2 kids, kind of a first for us. A high school player from Florida, a school player from Colorado. Tackle, one was a defensive tackle. Faculty, Dr. Carlson. We signed from Colorado. As whether he'll make that or not, but there's a lot about him. So, but 300 and he's strong here. But I think that engineering. So he's really. I think he's got the other one from Florida. Division I opportunities. They've almost lost him to Cumberland, which is about 10. I tell him, I said, you know, this program, and we had. And then we recovered him. So that down the road is going to be a good play. So we signed high school wise, who was number 59, the prison right tackle, who's 2.5 years and working for, and he's very, very athletic. And the thing that we pride our team is that we're athletic, a bigger hands, and all 3 of them are West, I think. And the third one was a late sign. Oh, the third one, no, we beat. He got dropped on the last weekend by Stephen Boone there. They offered him a scholarship. Same thing happened. We got a defensive tackle from his hands are, oh my God, 260, which for eyes coming are thick and long. And he test score until late. All the Division I stuff. So we, and again, we get a Division I player. Those things. But let me see who else. We didn't sign a quarterback. We didn't go out and take a quarterback than our last, the 2. And the 2 that we signed last are Jake Glover, a run for his, and our season coming up, and Last year, we're like the psychology department, finances, we want to be at 7-3. That's not acceptable in our world. You know, we 10-1 and it wasn't acceptable. And the year before the playoffs, you know, he speaks to us. He talks about national champions, like we talk about national champions with the Board of Regents, and we have those same, you know, facilities. Obviously, Hope Horizon, a major showcase. There's not a locker room in this state as good as what we've got. Now, there's got more in it. We've got we're down the road that we will walk that Midwestern football is to call home. As we go forward with that, you know, and you know, the show. And years ago, when we had that old locker room, it was a cage. We showed the West Texas up the road. They were deceptive. Even let's lay it on. Go to playoff games, and now that we've got we have that come students. We have pros. We have vice presidents. You've been over there, Doctor. Board. You know, we'd have a showcase. You know, everybody's putting in their word for all. I stopped in, Doctor, and I said, "How are we doing on that new stadium?" So I just kind of passed the word. But and the one I would suggest those that are not in the arena, recruiting is we may and find out we don't have that right now, and all of us left tackle to be effective. A transfer student, and that's our mission is not to. Last year, 10 of 11 of our players on offense came right out of high school. Defense came right out of high school. 12 years ago, it was probably in a perfect percent right out of high school. Aren't able to get the quality away, and do this recruiting. You know, we just of that all year long. But to Wendy, I appreciate you. Thank you all so much for your with the university. The thing is that our custodial supporters are everybody believe that. I think that's separate from many others. The Dr. Rogers and our vice president and our board of regents. So for me to be here and watch us play, you'll come and be a part of it. Thank you very much. Any questions?
I'd like to make a promise. We will have. We've closed. Bill, his father's a legend on state, and he comes to Bill was since Bill has been using season and bringing Bill. Anyway, thank you for your support, Bill.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's 14-61 in 2014. Enrollment report is in your phone. Good news, Dr. Lane.
Yep. That I will be the first speaker today, but I will 2014 spring semester with you. We passed 20th count day last week. It's good news. We are up 61% spring reduction, which is particularly 1.92%. A lot of reduction increase is that Dr. Clark's last year. Spring enrollment is considered a spring, and we produced 420 with the winter in these numbers. In particular, the classes look good in the fall with graduate degrees. We asked the number of students for this fairly unusual use.
All right.
Do you have any questions? You had me excited.
Thank you, Dr. Lamb, for that good. We'll move on to the dining service. Patients recommended housing in 15 are also shown in comment on these recommendations.
The is Dr. Givens, and it is comparing those rates to 2013-2014 request to increase, which are our by 4%. Reality is the private rate because we are full, and so used when we are not full. McCullough Trigg Hall, sophomore, some junior and senior, 4.2% west. A private 4% increase. We had 3 years ago. We had to do a market study for our same time these operations, and at that time they were our apartment rate and increase residence hall rate. That gap there was quite 2 rates, and so this is a continue. I will also tell you that we will see for the wireless this fall, and so we will 13 schools that we typically our rates fall. The traditional freshman's worth at rates compared to this, we rank 12 out. So even if those other 0%, we will be. So our housing rates are very. Our apartments, you can see we sent with the exception of Sunwatcher Village, direction of Sundance Courts apartment rate. Requested increase is only 1.5. Meal plan, really it's 3% or 11. A couple of things go into that has increased this last year. This coming year, we will funds or more money onto students. Card and even longer in the evenings, trafficked more, and we need to extend those hours. So to do that, when you think 12 schools, when you factor in freshman residence hall, the road board plan compared to their current year price of 13, this increase and where that position.
All right. I think the committee must approve in order to approve this item. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion. Say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Who's the business of the academic and
Thank you,
very
Dr.
much.
Gibbons. Executive committee meeting, we'll move back to the executive committee members of the committee joining me today. Bryant, Ms. 1446, approval of executive committee meeting. Are there any additions or item 14 date information regarding major construction projects? What projects are included in the anything to add to this information?
We'll ask.
Hey, get applause. I'm sorry.
I understand pecking order, I'm good with it. The first subject I'll cover, we're written 2 or 3 weeks ago, 80% work by the end of May with museum renovation completed, the light through, and 3 out of the 4 items on the miscellaneous, only one that's left on hold. The doc issued the RFA design and currently waiting a the welcome to the bursary's office completed. The wigwam trail between I should say the current this summer, but the financials on top of that to be over budget amount, it's probably closer to 20, but it's leaving with third museum. We a minute ago we were just about finished everything up there and had about 30,000. Use that money to the hardware on the interior areas. We just met on that this week. Once to actually get it in. The Outquest Research Station to a further on. The Welcome Center is complete over, and the wig section is again. And lastly, summarize the meeting. As I noted in the past, time periods when we get work list is a little longer. We did complete the seating and the food. Also added some forward in the atrium area for foam roof to get the one. We upgraded also the room in this building, flex joints, water them in central plant, placed a gearbox on also did the upgrades. We had some summer where a chiller it went down and was not able to quickly do a cooling issue, but it came invest a little bit of money into to make sure we don't have. And then the last couple items there showing kind of small construction for the campus as well. POs we haven't been able to. Now that it's starting to get warmer, it's installed and be able to get those in within certainly for the next meeting. And then lastly, for the lighting upgrades, please we're installing motion lights and all. And that's it.
Not only in no action is necessary. 1448 drought recovery. As you can see in the agenda item, the Sykes Lake water rights application is being reviewed by the TCEQ. Additionally, an RFP is being osmosis system provides out of our well water. Dr. Rogers, do you need to add to this information?
But as you recall, this issue reasons that we've talked about before. I'm very pleased with the progress that Kyle has made. I would like him to comment on it, but I will tell you that I'm surprised that inverse osmosis system isn't doing what we need. I think that's maybe a new solution that we found over there. Not in sure he has some comments on it anyway. So.
Sure. One was extension service. Another was an agronomist. Earlier was an agronomist that you may recall the master plan. They all had kind of differing opinions on the best way to chemical additions to the surfaces out of reduce the effect. And reading that we could try all these different success of them was it may be successful. It seemed to me if we're going to spend money and labor make these really be better off using the water. There was no debate. They're all we need is water. Well, we've actually cleaned up some. The idea of trying to reverse osmosis months out of the summer, keep those fields alive with headed at the moment.
I think the last meeting, our water tables, has it gone out there, or what do you?
We have a 29 feet deep effort to actually, it keeps pumping water. Yeah. Although realistically, we haven't been doing it.
unless we get money.
Okay. Any other? This item is presented as necessary. Items master plan update. We are discussing the future master plan. The next projects that we discussed, but please bring us up to date on what has been.
I will be brief, but let me workshop the data. It was very productive. Really brought some to new possibilities. Also helped us set next major projects. A lot of concurrence with that. What we said at that time, we do student government about the plans and did exactly the facilities and what we want about doing. Sure, talked to the deans, and I was privileged to be able to faculty senate showed up for that. My impression was for the disagreement with the priority, and so some excitement and some good feedback. And I will always need space to grow, but what I keep emphasizing, of course, up with this, and that with the availability of the equipment in the right classroom, one priority, I think, in all. We have a lot of planning. We have in the next two, it's what our priorities ought to be as far as we have to go through a lot of things, just in a hard look at the health science building. 120, do we need 70? Do we need, in the radio, how many new the faculty, what kind of facilitation? That work will be done with the planners, dean in that college. Now, if you approve our priority, that is, we are following, we indicated when we were IT specialist, parking or civil engineer. We are in a situation, and I think we've learned so much that we're going to have to consider these issues time, and I think that we should. So it matters. We're going to get the kind of planning. Really, I have nothing else to say mind about much of anything. We have gone more to the campus to see what they thought about. I think one of the things that's so exciting, comments about the layout of streets. Everyone gets from another, and the possibilities to make it more functional. Those are about that, in fact, to complete at least one of them. We're not prepared to do that exactly. We haven't changed our mind. I think that we're ready to go and ready to get down to the detailed planning of we want to ask the legislature to fund. And I'll make financial issues. Today we're going to talk so forth. This has funds that we need to hire as staff and to do with funds that are particular. For example, we're going to talk about the tuition to be appropriated by the state. Well, that will take a fee revenue bond. So, although related with the number of people we can attract to the funds, the yearly operation, the faculty and the staff. So, important thing.
Yes. Any questions? Okay. Information only and no action is necessary. As you recall, January session about the tuition revenue bond we discussed in January, our TRB request legislative session. Provide an update and the
Okay, we talked to and our deans and students on the campus, and I have not changed our mind. Left in our work session, and we begin detailed planning. We would then bring the amounts that it would cost for us to put in as a bond request. It would be severe consideration. So it's really important. We are recommending, first of all, a cost services facility. It does have a lot of moving to consider. Do with the information technologies, has a lot to do with work and data to take care of that. To think about this building, I believe that we would put all the building. We need more laboratories, we need more classrooms, and as a top priority, the legislature to fund. Try to put together a business plan and a budget in May. Additionally, ADA requirements, we would be needing important buildings. That would include our library hall and even POS South. I think that when he showed us what could be done, Hardin South campus concerned. So a large ADA upgrade, and we'd like to begin, and we'd turn both of those in. I think that it's important to pick one over the other. We need them both. I think these projects that we've been turning in, I think we can answer the question about this a long time. We have 2 projects complete. And by the way, out of the campus are projects that we higher education held back on bond, and would be those 2 TRB report or turn into the legislature.
Administration's recommended TR folder. There was a detail with TR of Health Sciences, Human Resources. TRB number 2, the Library Deferred Maintenance Project. And to approve this item as presented. Second. On this. I'll point out, and we talked not the projects themselves. The fact that we're asked to get more details and okay. In a second. All in favor? Opposed? Item 4, Dr. Rogers or Dr. Date on your thinking about student housing at this time.
Are you ready?
Sure.
I'll think about it. Oh, that's it.
Tease him.
In class, we see how many, such a huge percentage to start thinking about timeline and a plan for it. That's one of the things about it so much.
Rogers is right. As we grow, it's really important because the number of students, not from this percentage of our student body. In fall, for example, we lease 93 beds off our between 200 to we will need to sublease off. That is due to the long, and we feel this freshman class. We believe we will leave in the fall of 5th holds constant 25 beds, fall 500 beds, to be exact. We think it's time to begin housing for the fall, if at all possible. Right now, about programming of that housing, have some specific detail. We're asking for permission to finish the program and look for the
In your folder, the administration will proceed with planning student housing to include the issuance as necessary. 16, right?
target fall.
Could I have a motion to approve this item? Second, any other discussion on this matter? Yeah.
Sean, meeting last month, we spent the obviously needed, but available parking. I gave that a lot of thoughts. While I don't think necessarily are obligated near classroom, we have some obligation of the resident near where they live. So we need that we don't eliminate us doing this, because Sean mentioned last meeting, a youngster to have to walk 3 or 4 blocks to get to their home. To their home, that's a lot to ask. So I'm full of that issue.
Yep.
Any other comment? We have a motion.
Aye.
Carries. Item Dalquest Desert, here's Mr. Owen. Please project in your recommendation.
I know you've seen in, first of all, let me be simple as I possibly can. We had contractors in the first place, it is a 2.5-hour drive. Complex is unpredictable, hot, it is cold, but it is one of the earth as far as it, and it being logical and geological, it really does set universities in terms of facility for our science students. Certainly want other universities, as I said, they don't have, there is so much to do there to get this done. When we started this for 20 years, idea, even with all complex it is, where get your materials into it? How do you accommodate them in the desert and so forth? So a little understanding about the fact of changing this project. Learned a lot, and what has to be done to build a research facility and land like that. What you're going to have to do is build facilities to house workers going back and forth, cutting roads to getting material. Additionally, a contractor understands into a facility that has worked in territory like. One final thing, there have been 5 individuals donated to be done with private funds, and we now really understand that what has to be done within a few dollars of that it will take to do this. I would love to see are asking to the current approval $3,000. Someone who knows that construction that we need to, the facility that we need, research laboratory, we project to 800. We have the funds, contributions to it. We've had who've said yes, read to the sciences, so you can get faculty convinced. And Kyle, you can, that we know what was very complex there. We just need you to let us spend that.
You feel good about, as you noted, it construction project because people have, and it's this year's very remote. It's going to be bigger. It's about 30% build it out there, and we'll build it in Alpine. Low cost either. To this,
how long do you build?
Structures we only built before the season, which is in I think it's in July. This time, March, roughly a year. We'd like to
climate does dictate a lot, and we have to deal with that.
And that you don't have any satellite TV, I mean, when you're doing research,
Well,
don't you need to, I mean, it's possible to do that.
I probably.
With a dish and a receiver.
Right, they have, out there, it's a satellite phone they have in the pocket. And I can get some internet use out there, but it's not like it is. They will use some extent for the research, development process, hopefully be able to provide support.
I understand it. I've just gone to what enjoyment of doing it. Have now. It is so difficult. The weather, so we stay there and to samples and work mobility. Our students can 2 or 3 weeks, which really is the big place that is scientific instrumentation and do some work and put home after they collect samples. That's the major issues right now. It's take more time put in, but they're out there. Yeah, we will. Won't have.
I just wondered why
Yeah.
you didn't.
Could I have a motion in it?
Second.
Yes, by the way, there is in your folder, take a look at, you can just look at this in nowhere. So actually, I've not actually been out seeing the aerials, and I've actually seen where it is, and it is in the middle of nowhere. Look that definition up in the picture you're gonna see. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Scientifically, it's so unto residents of that general that don't even know this that are on this place scientifically. But I think it's where it loves to show it. Feel tough, but it's worth.
There.
Yes, to the problem is getting down into the 3.
There, you just can't get out of it.
Yeah, down is the canyon called Devil's Finger. Ends of several fingers there. The 2 different ones, where the bottom down. There are places like Chihuahua Desert that you in the Amazon. Usually it is, and that's the reason and everything. We have wonderful ones that live on it, and so it's a fascinating place to take advantage.
Dr. Gibbons.
Where do you
Near the front is once tall and is now.
Okay, you've been there. Landmarks in. As you turn to the little adobe house,
Right.
you cross that stream, take a left direction. I'm always turning around, and you see the way you look in that canyon. You would a couple of miles. It's not going to be up onto the little workstation is now. On Flatland, watch there as much as that does.
Questions, discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion carries. Item, Wichita Falls Museum of Art, external improvement is awarded $600 improvement to the museum. Take action so that the university can proceed with this project.
Okay, this is, first let me tell you this, how this community and this institution, how much this particular foundation want to build a center of culture. And request for Reynolds and for our summer music, a pavilion and for wedding performances and so forth. We thought about doing that in our phase of the project. Additionally, at the museum, it's hard to bring school buses in. Winter for our Christmas, we had 100 and something different will come in school buses. It's really inconvenient for the patrons of the museum. As many years as I've lived in the bank, rather than taking all of that needs to be, and I will go ahead and jump ahead and say to the point we need to, as external, we can run a bus system. A good idea about what we did. We were several foundations, $100,000 proposal. Jane could be probably delighted when we got back $1,000 request that they had $65,000 they believe in so much. And that we're $85,000 to complete parking lots, signage. The pavilion will be a beautiful facility. We are fundraising $85,000. Raise that. We've had a couple of very to us to $85,000 matching. We'll probably come to you when Foley and I've already talked about Education Assistance Fund, part of the 185 permission project, and exceed $850. That will be another useful facility and for this community. And I'm very appreciative in their interest.
I have a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
A second.
I'll second.
Any further discussion about that? We have a motion and a second. Motion carries. For Wichita Falls Museum of Art plan for fiscal. This plan is shown in your agenda. Our accrediting body, Dr. Rogers, do you have any comments about this document?
Jane comment too that the sure, I've certainly looked at it. I think it's excellent to be an accredited university. Music benefits in terms of and what we can do for this goal outlines measures that this board will locally agree with in this regard, how you session it, kinds of funds are used, things that I think to the oversight of the museum, the standards of the association that would accredit the museum. Approval of their Southern Association requirement, everything else that we so ask your plan and ask you to take it.
Okay, you have anything to add? Could I have a motion? Any other discussion about it? We have a motion and a second. Motion carries. Museum of Art ratification. How do you say that word there, Jane? This is another.
This 1954, and since we did it, this is part, and that is that we have to formally accept the museum. We will approve gifts. We will not use our art. In fact, editing body. But every week session it, and it is necessary that the board, your enjoyment, that we want you to collection.
Perfect. Yeah, they're in there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Yes. We do not accept all gifting of a major gift right now, university like the cyclist, or those will be owned by
only the museum.
Yes, thank you, David.
There.
Not really to see this collector at the museum really for this relatively new, and it's going to be by. So pleased with what we've selected.
Could I have a accession of these items as presented?
Second.
Any other motion in a second? All in favor? Motion carries. That has come before quick break. What time?
No more than 3:20.
3:20, please.
Are you gonna sing?
We're doing good. Jane?
And we're on the air.
Yes.
I did look for a big sign that said on air, but I haven't found anything yet.
I think we need one of those. Okay. Now on to the Finance Committee meeting. Mr. Bernhardt.
Thank you, Chair. The Finance Committee will now come to order. Members of the committee here today are Ms. Carnes, Mr. Engelman, and Mr. Gregg. Our first item, 14-63, is approval of the minutes of the Finance Committee meeting held November 7th, 2013. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, they stand as approved. Our next item, 14-64, is a summary of financial support received since our last board meeting. This report is presented in the agenda, and I'd like to ask Ms. Carnes to highlight some of the major gifts received. Sorry?
Yes, sir. I'd be happy to. I think you've gotten a redistribution of the list of gifts that do have assignments. I know some were disappointed that they weren't going to get to write all of them, but if you still want to, you may. Let's see. Okay. I'm really excited to report these new major gifts, and I was loving seeing that we have 6 pages of gifts here, so that's always a good sign. But some of the major gifts received since our last meeting include the following. Mr. Pat Boland previously pledged up to $750,000 over 3 years in matching funds to support the McCoy School of Engineering. During this quarter, we received $125,000 in matching funds. The second one is Mr. and Mrs. Max Bordenbaum contributed $10,000 to the Graham and Martha Ball Boys and Girls Club Scholarship and $100,000 for beginning freshman scholarships. Mr. and Mrs. Carl Jedicke donated $25,000, and Miss Ann Jedicke and Mr. Robert Schuyler contributed an additional $25,000 to the Mildred Snyder Jedicke Music Scholarship. This scholarship will be awarded to Wichita County high school graduates majoring in music. Mr. Christopher T. Honeywell contributed $25,000 for general student scholarships. Mr. and Mrs. Paul Ernst donated $20,000 in materials and labor for a toys Christmas display for the MSU Burns Fantasy of Lights. Mr. and Mrs. Carol Lang contributed $15,000 for the Lang Gwen Challenge to match new and lapsed donors to the annual fund. Mr. and Mrs. Thomas E. McCullough donated $6,000 to the Museum of Art at Midwestern State University to assist with annual operating expenses. May I just point out that your thank you notes are on the table. I hope you will do them, if not before you leave tomorrow, afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Howard, Jesse, do y'all have anything to add to these?
I do not want you, the year-to-date, as you can see, is about 2.3 million. Dr. Rogers and I are working on something, and I don't feel good it's only 2.3 to be very honest among my friends, but Dr. Rogers and I are working on something, so next time we meet, I think that will maybe even triple. So there's some very good things that are happening. And when I talk about the alumni, Dr. Rogers, I might want to mention some of the protocols that led us to this.
You're looking boring.
On the alumni meetings that I attended in Dallas and Fort
That's your
Worth.
report tomorrow. Okay. All right. Yeah, our timing's a little off. Howard's going to give you a report on the recent alumni gathering in Dallas and Fort Worth. I thought it's really important. We don't see a lot about that, but the alumni office and the association worked very hard, and I think it's a good thing. So we'll have a report on that tomorrow after. Okay.
Well, Howard, I look forward to that report tomorrow. As Jane mentioned, each of you encouraged to write thank you notes expressing board appreciation. This item is presented as information only and no action is required. Item 14-65, Grant Development Services. As you recall, at our last board meeting, administration presented information regarding the university's needs in the area of grant development. At that time, we authorized administration to move forward with contracting an outside firm if funds could be identified for this purchase. Dr. Rogers, will you bring us up to date on this matter, please?
Betty, if you want to say something, please do, but I will tell you, you approved our use of this particular grant agency. We're very, very proud of them, and we did go out and find a private gift and some unused private money to sign that contract. So we basically wanted to tell you that we're off and running with that contract. Betty,
And the representatives from the firm will be here February 25th and 26th to do an organizational analysis so that we can begin our process.
Dr. Stewart, thank you. Dr. Rogers, thank you.
I will say that and let me I'll repeat this, so, you know, I'm the kind of person who needs to hear something several times. I'm sorry, but I think this is one of the next major steps in the operation of, the reputation of, and basically the quality of Midwestern State University, and that is seeking and gaining research support for our faculty and for our students. We've got a faculty that's capable of that. We just need to give them support. This is the first big step in doing that. So, thank you.
Thank you. We look forward to positive results from this investment. This item presented as information only, no actions required. Item 14-66, financial reports. Administration recommended acceptance of the fiscal year 2013 annual financial report, as well as the September, October, November, and December 2013 financial reports. Dr. Foley, please.
Sure. On the AFR, you received some highlights, and to highlight the highlights, basically our net assets grew by 1.1 million, about 1%. On the comparative statement of basically an income statement, our revenues grew by $2 million in tuition and fees. Our gifts were up about $2 million. Expenses were up about $3.8 million. A big chunk of that was an increase in scholarships. So I'm very comfortable with our AFR position as it is. Like I said, our net assets grew 1.1 million, and that's one of the things you really look at is, are we improving our net asset position? So if you have any questions about the AFR, I'll be happy to entertain those.
Before we discuss further, could I have a motion to accept this report as presented?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any further discussions? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 14-67, investment report. You should have previously received a copy of the first quarter of 2014 investment report. Additionally, Jeff Sewell and Linda Wilson are here from American National Bank to discuss the investment of SMU's endowment funds. Dr. Foley, please introduce our guests.
Sure. Jeff Schultz and Linda Wilson are here from American National, and we invest our endowed funds, Midwestern states owned endowed funds with American National, and that's what Jeff and Linda are here to discuss with you. As you remember, last November we had Luther King come and present, so this will be hopefully an annual process that they can come and report to you the results of our investments with them, and would love to hear from Jeff as far as what he sees as the economic picture and future of opportunities in the investment field. So I'll let Jeff take it from here.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Fuller. Yeah, it might be a little bit easier for everybody. Debbie's passing out a booklet that's got some return information in it. And on behalf of American National, I'd like to thank you for having us today. We have a long history with the university and I'm really proud of it. We did a quick survey yesterday. We have 28 employees that are alumni of the institution and 6 current students working in the drive-thru primarily. So a lot of kids working. So what I thought I'd do is just kind of go through where the economy is, how the endowment did this past year, and where we see the market going in the future. So if you go to that first tab, it's a pretty busy chart, but this goes back about 53 years. And the green line is the S&P 500, the white line is the U.S. Treasury rate, the yellow is the unemployment rate, and the red is the Fed funds target rate. And what you see right off is that with interest rates, they hit a high in 1981 of 15.84. That was the yield at the end of the period for the Treasury. And then in June of 2012, hit a low of 165. And presently, we got a 10-year Treasury yield at 275. Fed funds are at a historic low of 25 basis points. Extremely low, even lower than what we had back in the early 60s. The unemployment rate right now stands at about 6.6%. We've had 2 periods where it's been below 4%, and most recently it was as high as 9.9%. So starting to come down off that high, but has a little bit of a ways to go. And then the last thing, the S&P 500. If you look at it, it is the green line, and so it is hitting a record high based on where we've been for the last 50 plus years. You can see the volatility that we've had since 2000. Up until that time, it had been a fairly gradual increase, and then we've had some pretty rough periods. If you look at the top of 2000 when it first started coming down, then we had 9/11 and started to recover in 2002, build back up, and we did it all again with the collapse of the financial markets. So we've had a pretty good increase. When we had the funds we took over the funds back in the funds that we managed back in November of 2007, and so at that point the market was starting to turn over. There was a lot of concern just how aggressive to be with the funds, and then that's where we are today. Go to the next page. This will just give you an idea of where interest rates are starting at the bottom. Thankfully, we're not in Japan. You can see their interest rates as that first red line on the bottom, and barely break 2%, even going out 40 years. So not a good place to be. The green line, the next green line, is the Eurozone. A little bit better, but not much. We're the next green line at the top. A little bit better. The purple line I just threw in there, that's that's Italy. And as you hear about Italy and all their fiscal issues, I guess we have a choice to invest either in Italy or the blue line, which is an A-rated corporate U.S. bond. So you can see, I'd put my faith in the A-rated corporate over the sovereign of Italy. And then the top line is Greece. And you're probably well aware of the issues that Greece has had over the years. So basically, we've got 10-year treasuries at 2.75 or 2.75%, and corporate bonds in that same range, around 4%. On the next page, we're spending a lot of time on interest rates, and I'll circle back to this on why we're doing this. This is a chart that goes back 37 years, and it shows the spread between a 2-year treasury note and a 10-year treasury note. And so there's a lot of concern that about where interest rates are headed and where we're at. And we're at a historically high spread between the 2-year and the 10-year. 300 basis points is probably close to the max. The average or the median's been around 85 basis points. And so for interest rates to go up in 10 years, we have to see those shorter term rates increase. And we don't see any sign of the Federal Reserve making a change with that rate anytime soon. So we're going to be here for a little bit. We think maybe in 2015 and 2016, we'll start to see the Fed both loosen up or tighten rates, and the interest rates start to accelerate a bit. So we'll probably be at this level for the remainder of the year, or maybe interest rates will be slightly higher, but not a lot. So as the university talks about expanding facilities and taking out debt issuance, it's an ideal time. I think about our first mortgage, my wife and I, our first mortgage was in the mid-80s at 12%. So, if you have a choice between 4% and 12%, I'll take the 4% if you're going to be a borrower. So, the next page are just some key features of both the equities and the bond positions overall. Before we go into that, I think we're seeing the global economy pick up a bit. We see it very good for our stocks still. Not as good as last year, but still positive for stocks. And it's primarily because we have accommodative, the Federal Reserve is being very accommodative, as well as the other developed countries. And so as long as that stimulus is there, even though they're tapering back about 10 billion every time they meet, there's all that stimulus sitting out there. And we just think that's going to help the equity market. We're seeing gains in housing, consumption, and business investment. Corporate balance sheets are probably in the best shape they've ever been in. There's a lot of cash to spend, and that bodes favorably for stocks in that companies are doing acquisitions, or they're buying back their shares, or they're dividending those shares out, or dividending cash out if they can't use it. We've got a situation with the labor force where the unemployment rate's coming down, but the quality of the jobs isn't as good. If you think about, what we see in Wichita Falls, we're seeing manufacturers pull back, but we seem to have a lot of fast food companies come into town, and so those aren't necessarily the best jobs that you could possibly have. And so we've got some people who could work in higher paying positions if things pick up. We think for this coming year, we'll see the stock market based on the S&P 500 be up, let's say single digits, around 5%. It could be flat to slightly up, but not anything just on fire. If you go to the page that has the bar chart, you can see last year, and these numbers are through 12/31, and we'll update the January numbers soon. But for last year, you can see the top 5 equity positions we had and what their returns were, and then what the bottom 5 positions were. On the bottom 5, we had American Airlines. That position since has doubled. We were down last year for part of the year, and then we were up. On the bond portfolio, we have an average coupon rate of 4.95%, yield to maturity of 2.28%. And probably the more important thing is we have a duration of just under 4. And what the duration means is if you think about when you get all the cash flows, the volatility that we'll experience. So it's a time weighting of the cash flows. And so if interest rates go up 1%, you can pretty much take that Macaulay duration and assume that the value of the bonds will be down 4%. So it doesn't take a lot of interest rate increase to see a decrease on the fixed income portfolio. And so 75% of the endowment's bond positions will mature in 1 to 5 years. And so we're keeping the duration fairly short, but there's not a lot of return coming off those funds. And so presently we have a purchase yield of just under 3%. So it's not a lot. Something to consider is that if you look at, like I said, 10-year corporate bonds are around 4%. 5-year corporate bonds are at 2.5%. The dividend yield on the S&P 500 is just under 2%. So with the common stocks, we get some inflation protection, where with the bonds, we don't get that type of inflation protection. By the way, Verizon, their dividend yield is 4.5%, which is greater than their 10-year corporate bond yield. If you go back beyond the cover page, next page. At the end of 12/31, the total portfolio stood at $8.3 million. And as far as the allocation goes, we had 5% in cash, 29% in fixed income securities, and 66% in stocks. Is how we ended up. The investment policy that we're operating under calls for a maximum of 70% in stocks. So we're slightly under that when we ended up the year. When you look at what happened in January, the market sold off. The portfolio went down to about $8.2 million, which was a 1.2% decrease. But if you look at it with the S&P 500, that was down 3.5%. So you can see when the stock market's going up, the bonds are a drag. And when the stock market's going down, it's a benefit. So it's just a level that we have to deal with.
Your equity is about what, 33% last 12 months? And your mid cap's almost 70.
As far as the returns,
Right.
correct. Right.
12 months.
Yeah. So if, on the next page, there's a pie chart, and we'll go into how the return is. So for the total portfolio for 2013, it was up 18.6%. And so you can see up there, probably about 3 lines down, I'm looking at the 12-month returns. It was down 5.7% for one of the categories, and that was for a taxable municipal bond. That taxable municipal bond is Midwestern. We bought some last summer. We've got a decent yield on it. It's over 3%. We paid par for it, but it's just what happened with bonds. You know, interest rates go up, value of the bond goes down. In January, it was pretty much flat, so that was a change there. In aggregate, all the stocks were up roughly almost 33%, and so for us, that was a fairly decent return, so we're pretty happy with that. As we look at what happened in January, the market being down, we anticipate we'll see the portfolio is down or return for the last 12 months just under 13%. So if you think about it, last year we had a pretty big increase in January, and then you compare January to January, it was only up probably about 13%. That's probably, are there any questions so far? Okay. If you go behind the next tab, and go to the second page there, it's page 2, for the investment review. This is as of 2 nights ago where the portfolio was. The market value of the portfolio was $8.2 million. And we had raised some cash in December. We had sold some things, just anticipating that the market had been so far up that we could see it fall back. And so we had sold some and gone to cash. And we have since put some of this back to work. We have some positions settling today and tomorrow, which will bring our cash position back down to about 6%, and the equity position will be at 64% of the total. So we've made some changes there. Part of it was just to rebalance positions, take some off the table as far as things that I had really appreciated. But that's where we are today. Are there any questions? One thing I'd suggest to you is to, I don't know if I'm sure the university does it, but to look at all the pots of money and see what the overall allocation is. And as we said, it's a good time to borrow, but there's not a lot of return on the fixed income side. And so we're being probably more aggressive to putting money into equities. Even if we have single-digit returns, total returns this coming year, it's still a positive relative to if interest rates come up and we see the value of the bonds decrease. And so our slant or tilt is more towards the equity side of the market. And so until we see a change, even with these high market values relative to where it's been in the past, that's probably where we'd prefer to be, is put more onto the equity side than on the fixed income side.
Jeff,
Charlie?
or are you suggesting that we change our investment policy, I guess? This way, because you're limited on equities.
We are limited on equities. I can tell you for some of our other long-term endowments, the policy statement is up to 75%, and typically there'll be a plus or minus 5% up to 80%. I think that's probably too aggressive, but going at least up to 75% makes sense to me. It does. But we have to also balance that with, we saw a sell-off in January, and everybody's like, is this it? Is this when everything falls out? But we do still have an accommodative Fed, and until that changes, I don't really see, I think there'll be some growth with the equities. The companies that we're buying in the portfolio are not exclusively, but typically they're around $35 to $40 billion. And so those are the companies that are being acquired by other companies. We had last year Dell and Cooper Tire, and one other escapes me right now, but were acquired in fairly short order. So I just think it's a good time to borrow, but to be a lender of fixed income in the fixed income market, it's not a great time. And so we're just seeing higher dividend yields on the equity side too. But with that, you know, keep in mind if we can get a 20% return, positive return, we can also have a 20% negative return. I mean, that volatility works both ways, and so whatever decision you make, I'd suggest you keep that in mind.
We have another bracket that no one's using. It's called alternative investments. I'm totally at a loss myself as to know what all this includes.
It's everything else. So, I think some of the alternative areas make some sense. I've seen Bloomberg Magazine put out an article probably 2 months ago that talked about alternative investments in commodity funds. And it showed that while the premise made a lot of sense, when you look at the funds and the fees that they're pulling out of it and the expenses, it was actually negative to a flat return. And so we have to weigh that, you know, what's the distribution cost of whatever we get into, what the return might be, in which area. I mean, it's so many different things. It's long short funds, it's option funds, it would be real estate, a lot of different things. We're not opposed to it, you know, if we see the right opportunity to look at something like that. But so far, the only thing that's come close that we've looked at is a private real estate investment trust. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jeff and Linda, thank y'all so much.
Great.
For taking the time to visit with us today. Really appreciate that. Dr. Foley, do you have any additional comments concerning the first quarter investment report, please?
In your folder, there is a sheet. I wanted to give you an update on our decision to take our cash and invest it with the A&M system. And so what our controller did, our new controller, Chris Stovall, where's Chris? Over there. He put together a comparison if we had left the money invested the way that we had done it previously to what we are receiving from A&M system office. We have earned an additional $190,000 in interest over the 4 months. So that's pretty significant.
Is that net?
That's net. The nice thing is we did only budget $300,000 this year, trying to be very conservative because we didn't know what to expect. So it looks like we will do quite well on our budget projections. And we'll probably next year budget a little additional interest from this source of funds. So I did want to give you that update and that good news that it looks like it's working out nicely.
Thank you so much. Could I have a motion to accept the report as presented?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 14.67A, MSU Charitable Trust, Value Determination. A couple of weeks ago, the MSU Charitable Trust Board met and approved changing the value determination dates from March 1st to March 31st. This change allows for a better fit with the university budgeting cycle. The language in 4 of the charitable trust agreements must be changed quarterly, and a recommendation is shown in your folders. Dr. Rogers, please comment.
Yes, I would appreciate your consideration of this. It's based on the fact that in our scholarship program, we need to advise the deans who require are holding. They're not holding these funds. The funds are for students in those particular colleges. How much money they will have for scholarship, because they and their faculty and along with the administration determine how much the students we're going to give scholarships to will be. In order for us to make early offers, we need to evaluate earlier than March the 1st, and that's the reason we've asked to move it to December 31st of the previous year, so we will know and we can tell the deans what they have, because I know that And I'm very pleased at the fact that they've taken a great deal of interest in this, and they are asking early, and we want to be able to tell them.
Thank you. Before we discuss further, could I have a motion to approve this language as presented?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right, any further discussions? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item 14-68, budget increase of $50,000 and under. Two budget changes are presented in the agenda document for ratification. Dr. Rogers, would you or Dr. Lamb comment on these changes?
I'll actually let Dr. Lamb, since he really administers these funds. We have unallocated student service fees. It's been necessary, I think, to expend some of those fees, and I'll let Keith comment on it.
Yeah, absolutely. As you all know, under both Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and the Americans with Disabilities Act, we are required to provide certain accommodations to students with disabilities. Now, year to year, we do not know when we go through our budgeting process what disabilities we will be providing accommodations for the following year. The most expensive of those are students who have a hearing impairment. This year, we have a number of students who enrolled with a hearing impairment that require both interpreters and CART services, which is real-time captioning. That costs upwards of $65 per hour to provide. And so we have seen a significant increase in our cost to provide accommodations this year. Thus, the request or the $50,000 additional that we need to provide those requests for the remainder of the fiscal year. That's the first one for disability support services. And the second one is our cheerleaders this past summer qualified for national cheerleading finals through NCA in Orlando, Florida. They participated this last month in January, and so we wanted to make sure that they had the ability to go and participate. And in fact, they wound up finishing 4th in the nation in small co-ed, so we're very proud of them.
Kids.
That's for the kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Not for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we discuss further, could I have a motion to ratify this budget changes as presented?
So moved.
Second. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 14-69 is a review of personnel reports, and salary, title, position change in the 2014 budget. Dr. Rogers, please comment on these.
We've had two small changes. We filled 2 staff positions, one up, one down. For the next budget year, that'll be a total new cost of $5,600. And the net cost this year will be $1,625. Let's see, in custodian facility services, we had 2 eligible for promotion. I'm pleased we were able to give them that promotion. And so that cost an additional $1,200, or will cost that next year. So it's a small change. It'll be reflected in next year's budget.
Thank you. Could I have a motion to ratify this item as presented?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Is there any additional discussions? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries as presented. Item 14-70, Summer Budget 2014. As you can see in your folder, the administration recommends an increase in the 2014 summer budget by $300,000. Dr. Rogers and Dr. Stewart, please tell us about this.
I will comment on it, then ask Dr. Stewart to comment on this too. And we won't make it complex. I think it's a good, I don't think there's any risk in this at all. I think it's a good thing to do, but we find ourselves in a stronger financial position at this time of year. We have some funds set aside that would go into this. The deans collectively presented a proposal to our provost, I believe, and asked first of all that we return $100,000 to put our summer budget back where it was when we were hit so hard with the changing Pell Grants. Additionally, we would and I think really what stimulated this was the success of the mini courses that we offered. We picked up more students than we anticipated, picked up more credit hours, and the deans believe that if we offer some more courses, we'll pick up students that there would be no courses for. Betty, will you comment sort of on the conditions that we're doing this?
Yes, deans will notify faculty that if they take on some of these additional dollars, that they have to meet minimum enrollment guidelines for each of the courses. If the course is a 1,000, 2,000 level course, we will need 15 students enrolled. If it's a 3,000, 4,000 level course, we will need a minimum of 10 students enrolled. And if it is a post-bac or graduate course, we will need a minimum of 5 students enrolled. And they've agreed to those terms, and if we don't meet those enrollment minima, those courses may not be offered.
Okay. We still, and we talked about this the other day, I'm sorry, Betty, but I think, everybody ought to know, there are circumstances in which we have graduating students, 4 or 5 in a class that meets, say, 13 students in it, and Betty and the deans and the faculty member have the discretion of offering those classes. And in essence, what we're doing, if those classes make at those levels, we get the money back in the form of tuition and fees, and eventually we get money from the state based on credit hours. So I think this is a very safe attempt to see if we can't begin to reestablish and raise the summer budget. So I have no fear of us putting this investment out there and losing funds on it, because quite honestly, we need it for next year's budget. I feel pretty good about it and recommend it to you.
Okay. Could I have a motion to authorize this transfer of funds as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
I'd like to comment on this. I talked to Dr. Rogers pretty extensively about this yesterday, and sold me on the idea. I had a lot of questions, but sold me on the idea, and I think it's a good idea, and I think it's a great opportunity for the Midwestern to add semester hours or available for the students. I'd like to add to the motion that the administration bring a report in our August meeting to how successful was this program.
That's excellent idea. We'll be happy to do it.
So I'd like to modify the motion to add that to the motion. Did I do that properly, David?
And I'm sure Dr.
Jeff
Cole
and
will
Charles
agree.
accept that.
I'll accept your amendment.
Okay.
Amendment. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, further discussion?
How much, if any, of this is a byproduct of our increase in enrollment? Or is that two separate issues?
Actually, I think it's a good question. This is sort of empirical. We're gonna wait, we're gonna see. I think that'll be part of us making more summer classes. There are a lot of things going on. There seems to be a trend of students taking more hours per year. I think this downturn in the economy's caught a lot of attention in terms of getting in school and getting out is much less expensive, more productive, and so forth. So there are variables, including that one, that we think will come into play this summer.
It's base period.
Yeah, and it's a base period. That's the reason that we will get credit hour. If we keep up our credit hour production, we certainly increase our appropriation. Okay.
I think the administration was overwhelmed. Well, that's probably too strong a word.
Yeah.
With the acceptance, I guess is the best way to word that, between the fall and spring semester of the students taking the short mini courses, I think y'all referred to it.
Yeah.
And so that's what the administration bringing to us for us to look at this, that they pretty impressed with what we offered there.
I think, Betty, did Dr. Clark say that y'all are gonna offer 10 mini courses
Yes.
in May? That's
tremendous.
I hope that I'll make that, because that goes right into the summer enrollment count.
Wow. Super, great. All right, any other discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 14-71, reinstatement fee. The administration recommends increasing the reinstatement fee from $50 to $100 effective with the fall 2014 semester. Dr. Rogers or Dr. Foley, please comment.
You know, if there are too many of us try to explain this, it really will get complex. I'm just gonna turn this over to Marilyn and let her explain it one time. We all understand it, but trying to
Sure, so,
express
so what
it,
happens
so-
with a reinstatement fee is if a student doesn't pay their bill by 12th class day, we drop them from all their, or void them, is the other term, from all their classes to try to get them in to pay. So the only leverage you really have is by dropping them from their classes. And then then they come back, 15th class day and go, oh, please put me back in. Well, it's a lot of work for us to be trying to chase these students down, and then we have to get them reinstated in all their classes, work out a payment plan, or work with financial aid. So we've only been charging $50 if they don't take care of business by the 12th class day. And so most institutions are charging much more than that. So we would like to up it to $100. And Mr. Chair of Finance Committee, I know you suggested maybe we go higher than that. There are places that do charge $200 to make it really a penalty if you don't take care of business. There are 3 different avenues if they don't have their financial aid worked out or they don't have a credit card to put it on. We have an emergency loan that costs $22.50 and a 1% that will stretch out. Then they would gain an extra month or so before they'd have to start making some payments. There's also an installment plan that they only have to come up with 1/3 of the money, and then they have 2 dates within the semester to pay off the rest of the balance. So we have avenues for them to take care of business, but they need to do it by 12th class day, and we don't need to be trying to chase them around and then have to go through all the bureaucracy of trying to get them reinstated in their classes. So this is one mechanism to try to help them do that. We had 96 students in the spring that we dropped, and then about 50 at the end of the day that we had to go and put back in. So it's a lot of work for a very few amount of students.
So they don't get a notice that.
Oh yes.
Oh, they do.
We have phone call, we phone them, we email them.
Yeah.
I mean, Chris, we spend days trying to get, at the list on probably 11th class day is maybe 900 students. 900 students on 11th class day in the business office. We even use the phone-a-thon folks to try to call them and say, get in here and get your stuff taken care of so you don't get voided. So we go to extraordinary lengths to try to make sure those kids are taken care of. But at the end of the day, there are a few that just don't take care of business. So.
Yeah. The interesting thing is, I'll repeat, if they would just come in, we'll loan them the money.
Right,
to make
we have the
payment,
emergency
short-term
loan program or installment loans that we can take care of them short-term until they can get their business worked out, so.
Yeah.
All right. Could I have a motion to authorize this increase as presented?
So moved.
Okay, second.
Second.
Talked to Dr. Foley somewhat about this, and it's been, I don't remember, I'm sorry, 10, 20 years since we've had an increase in this. And yes, as she said, I did say maybe we need to make it a little stiffer. My thought was to do the jump it to $100. Then, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, after the 21st day, we lose all the state funding and all for this. So my suggestion was we jump it to $100. Maybe by the 15th day, say it's jumping to $200. You better get in here before it jumps that. Because I sure hate for us to lose that state funding if they come in and, correct me again, and get it reestablished and all after the 21st day.
Right.
The 20 day, okay, whatever it is. They get back in, we get their tuition off, but we lose the state funding.
Marilyn, are they confused as to what the expenses are gonna be? I mean, are we giving them all the information they need to make a decision on whether they can afford it to begin with, or should we make that?
We send them their bills.
But I mean, before they come here, do we give them all the information they need to know how much it's gonna cost them? Yeah.
On the admission side.
Yeah, absolutely we do. And we also have the cost calculator online, and
financial aid works with them.
Right, and so a lot of these students aren't our, and I haven't actually looked at the distribution, but I would imagine a large number of them are not
First-time freshmen.
First-time freshmen. I imagine students who've been here.
Oh, I see.
But-
Yeah, well, they should know, yeah.
So you see this as really a procrastination fee rather than any expediency? You're saying if they came in, you would make other arrangements?
There are other arrangements they can, like I said, there's the emergency loan and the installment plan. So if they don't have enough financial aid to cover them, there are some other means to stretch out the payments beyond that 12th class day. I mean, they don't have to have 100% of their tuition and fees paid by 12th class day. They can make these other arrangements to stretch the payments out a little bit.
Well, Mr. Chairman of the committee, I would agree with you as just a comment that I don't know why you wouldn't raise it to 150 initially, because it's not a lot of money. It's not enough apparently to incentivize people. That's what I'm gazing by.
I thought that was well put the way you worded that. Yeah,
And you will make arrangements if they will come in, but they're not doing it.
They're not doing it.
Having lived with a procrastinator for a number of years, I would recommend the increase immediately.
May I suggest that not all of these students are on that side, because my office and the scholarship office sees a lot of these students, and to them $200 or $300 or $400 means whether they can come to school. Do some procrastinate? Yes. Is it all of them? Absolutely not. So I would hate for us to think that we're sending a strong message to a group that is not paying attention. A lot of them are just trying to raise money at the very last minute. And my office, because of what we do, sees a lot of that.
That's a fair statement.
If we could just get them to come in, Howard,
Yeah, the
and
thing is
say,
they can come
I
in.
can't do it, we can get them in on the 12th day, and just come in. Sure.
And I
We need to get
suppose the
that information
notices
out.
reflect that we have options for them to.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, that's when we call them, we're saying, please get in here, we can get you an emergency loan or, something so that you're not getting voided out of all your classes. And like I said, for the most part, I mean, we have 900 or so that are waiting till even the last minute on the 12th class day, and we're taking care of a vast majority of them are, coming in and making arrangements. But there's this little piece that every semester just even procrastinates beyond that, and it's a lot more work once they get voided from their classes. It's a lot more work to get them reinstated.
How much, say for a 3-hour course, how much state revenue do we lose if they go past the 21st or whatever day it is?
It depends on the weighted semester credit hour. So the weighted semester credit hour is based on the program they're in and the level. So the freshman, sophomore is at one rate, and the junior, senior, upper division is at another rate, and then master's and doctorate.
Okay, so say freshman, sophomore.
Freshman, sophomore English class is a weight of 1. So 1 semester credit hour is 1 weighted semester credit hour.
Yep.
A master's engineering is a weight of 7.7. So if a person comes in and takes a master's of engineering course, they're equivalent to 7 freshmen. So it's, we'd love to get the upper class and we love to get the graduate because it counts more than the freshman. But so depending on, the answer to your question is depending on what type of courses they're taking and what level is how much state funding we're going to get on that student in that course.
The question is, what is that? Okay.
What's the dollar
The
amount?
one will depend on, what?
Yeah, 1 weighted
When
semester
it's
credit hour
normalized to
was
one,
appropriated.
It's still $52
Yeah,
or $100.
$54. So 1 weighted semester credit hour is equivalent to $54. But we pay statutory tuition as part of the state funding of that weighted semester credit hour. So, or that $54. So we're contributing $50. So to us, the net of new appropriations $4. Does that make sense? I mean, it's very complicated.
Yeah, no,
but it's
it
all-
does. And I guess where I was going is, do we need to be recouping that as part of this reinstatement fee for those that, what do you say? No, okay.
Right, the ones that are, there's usually only like 1 or 2 that are after the 20, that don't have their tuition and fees paid by the 20th class day that then ask to be reinstated, because those are the ones we really discourage. I mean, if they have never been enrolled and they come the 21st class day and say, oops, I need to get enrolled in this class, I've been sitting through it, but I just haven't enrolled because I haven't had the money, those are, I could probably count them on one hand.
Yeah.
Because we don't like to do that because we're not going to get any state funding. The other ones that we do not get state funding for is if they had to repeat the class. So if they flunk the class and they're in it for the third time, the state will not pay us for that class. So there's a repeat charge now that the state's saying we should be charging for those students. It's our choice whether we do it, but it's a way to recoup that lost state funding. The other one is excessive credit hours. So if a student has been here as a career student and has gone above 150 semester credit hours or 30 semester credit hours above their major, we don't get state funding for those students either. So again, there's an excessive hour credit charge that we charge them because of that lost state funding.
Well, I just wondered if this, if that 21-day state reimbursement was hundreds of dollars, and I'm hearing it's not, so, okay.
Yeah, well, depending on, like I said, what
Right.
level, if it's the graduate engineering course, it could very well be hundreds of dollars that we're losing because they didn't get enrolled in time. Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Gibbons put on the table maybe up to $150, and I'm not sure who made the original proposal.
Jane and Charles moved and seconded the $100.
Right. Are y'all wanting to open it up to 150 or leave it at 100?
I'd be open to it.
Charles?
Well, I don't know. I guess it depends on who and why. They're, in my mind, if they're just procrastinating, then I would say, yeah, go ahead and raise it. But if they're really out trying to figure out all of a sudden,
see, to me, and I think Dr. Gibbons put it exactly, they're procrastinating because, as both Dr. Rogers and Dr. Foley have said, that there's multitude of ways coming in and getting short-term loans or whatever, in case they are running short on funds.
But then Howard said that he sees a lot of them in his office that aren't procrastinating. So
We have all of these things. The point is, do they actually know those? Do we try and educate them? Do we get that to everybody? No, we don't. Do we try? Of course we try.
That's right.
It's to their advantage.
Let me throw this out real quick, because I think...
I was going to say, Mr. Chair, if I may interrupt you, Shelby asked, and we probably should listen to Shelby give us a student's perspective on this, and forgive me for interrupting you, I apologize.
I will say, like, the registrar's office, you know coming in how much it's going to be, because in your account it shows, like, for bucks for your gas for the entire year, and that number for me is like $19,000, which I don't think it ever ends up costing me that much money. But and they let you know there's payment plans and there's things like that. But I've stood in line at the business office and watched people in front of me like freaking out because they just don't have the money right now and they don't know what they can do. Even though it's there, they still don't realize that there is help available or how to go about getting that help. So I would say $100 would probably be a better start for now. But
So, I don't even need to talk, because that's exactly what I'm going to say, because I heard Howard loud and clear.
I did too. And that's fair, and it's all,
I think that's
Gibbons, I think
exactly
pull your motion back off the table, and go with the original motion if that's acceptable. Okay.
And as I was going to say, this is empirical. Let's see if it works.
Good point.
Let's try it for a year and see if it makes a difference. Because we'll come back and report on that too. So.
Okay, fair enough. All right, any other discussion? All right, let's see here. I've lost my spot here. We have a motion and a second. Excuse me, all in favor? Y'all wait for that. All opposed? The motion carries as presented. Sorry. Item 14-72, new faculty positions for the fiscal year 15. The administration recommends the addition of 2 faculty positions in fiscal year 15. Dr. Stewart, please comment.
Yes, we have 2 positions. Both will be funded by donor funds. One is in the College of Engineering. This is for our petroleum engineer who will be teaching in our petroleum certificate program. The second position is in the Dillard College of Business, an accounting position And this person will be one of the founding faculty for our Center for Energy Management. Both positions will be funded with donor funds.
And one of them up to 10 years.
Yes.
Could I have a motion authorizing to present these positions as presented?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 14-73, budget, tuition, and fee review. As you're aware, during the last legislation session, a bill was passed that requires all state universities to offer a fixed tuition plan beginning in the fall of 2014. Administration is prepared to outline this recommendation. Dr. Foley and Dr. Rogers, please, the floor is yours.
Let me tell you what you probably already know, then let's turn it over to Dr. Foley to talk about what we as a staff saw and the reason that we're going to make the recommendation we are. But I think everyone's familiar with the fact that in this last legislative session, every state university was told to establish a guaranteed 4-year tuition plan. We can have that plan and also at the same time have a variable plan that would change from year to year. Some universities had already done that. One university required a flat tuition. It's a very high cost university in the state and just required every student to go in that direction. Another university put a flat rate plan in to see if it would work, and they said, you know, the rate of higher education inflation is a little above 3%, it's above core inflation rate. So they took 3%, 3%, 3% compounded, which puts it above 12%. In order to get on the flat tuition plan, an incoming freshman would have to pay 12% or something thereabout more than someone who'd take the variable plan. As a consequence, no one took that plan. When this rule came down, we were all very much concerned that the rule would be, and the legislature passed it, that we all had to go with the flat rate because we really hadn't started putting our heads in on this. So when it came about, I think we talked about it in staff one day and said, we really hate to throw out a variable plan just to meet, a fixed plan just to meet the state rule. We would like one that some students would actually accept because knowing what you're going to pay for 12 semesters or 4 years would be a real benefit because students or the university really know how inflation is going to run, how the cost of medical care. I mean, it goes up $500,000 a year sometimes, so it's hard to say. But the more we thought about it, we wanted to put together a option of a flat plan or a guaranteed plan that students would find attractive. Well, and I think Dr. Foley is going to explain it, what we did, and I compliment our budget staff. We came up with a plan that we like so that we think it would be an advantage to the university and the students for Midwestern State University to go with a flat tuition plan. And I think it's innovative. I think it would encourage students to stay here. And I think it's a plan that we could make our budget on. And I think talking to the students, they get it. They understand what it means to have a guaranteed tuition for 4 years if they will go with this plan. Mm-hmm. Okay, and is that okay? Marilyn will make a presentation on what our reasoning was in coming up with the recommendation.
Thank you so much. I'm presenting you the same presentation that we made to our students about 10 days ago. And the reception we got from the students was they thought it was reasonable, and they even asked, why aren't you going up more? So I think it was a good reaction from them, and in the newspaper, the student newspaper, it received a favorable write-up as well. So with that, as was mentioned, we have a legislative mandate to present a fixed tuition option to our students. The legislative language actually says we have to have a we can freeze designated tuition for 12 consecutive semesters for new and transfer students to the institution starting fall of 14. And we can use whatever tuition rate we need to use in that frozen rate to guarantee that we don't lose any money, which means we don't have to offer a rate that would be below students who did not choose that frozen rate. Okay, so it's not to save the students money, it's to give them a more practical way to budget over their lifetime that they're here. The other thing is it's 12 consecutive semesters, so we got a lot of questions about that. It does not mean if you don't go in the summer, now it extends you a summer. If you don't go for a summer, you've used up one of your semesters. Okay, so from the time they start to the time this plan is over for them, it's 12 consecutive semesters whether they attend or not. Okay. So what we wanted to do too is not just give the freshmen and the transfer students a fixed rate, but also look at our current students. We didn't feel it was fair that we were going to give a deal or a budget plan for the new students coming in and not do something for our existing students. So we looked at a 6-semester plan for our seniors and graduate students and a 9-semester plan for our juniors. And then once you get through, if you use up your 12 semesters or 9 semesters or 6 semesters, you would then go to the next freshman transfer rate during that academic year that you've expired your current plan. The other thing we're doing is we're only freezing designated tuition. So statutory tuition is set by the state, so we don't have a choice what we charge there. And then all the other fees, some of those are legislative determined, athletic fee, rec fee, those kind of things, and or student referendum. So those are not included in this. It's only designated tuition.
Marilyn, to be clear on that point, the mandate from the legislature, though, is specifically tuition, right?
Designated tuition is in the language, right? Some other institutions are taking it to an extreme, including everything. That is going to be very difficult to administer. So we pretty much went back to the legislative language and intent and tried to be true to that in our plan that we're presenting to you. Again, 12 consecutive semesters. Summer sessions count as a semester. If they start in the spring or their summer, they still get the 12 semesters. So when you look at the fall, if you come in the fall, yeah, you get the 4 semesters. But if you come in spring, you also get 12 semesters. So this is a rolling plan. Every semester you're going to have a new cohort that has those 12 guaranteed semesters. And again, as I mentioned, it doesn't count if you didn't enroll in a term, that doesn't mean you get extended. It's 12 consecutive terms whether you use them or not. The 9 consecutive semester plan for our fall 14 juniors, it would go through summer of 17. And then for our seniors, post-bac graduate students, it would start this fall and run through summer of 16. Again, when the 9 and the 6 is done, and if they have not graduated by that time, they're going to roll into the new freshman transfer amount, whatever it is at that point. We felt like for seniors, 6 semesters is reasonable. That gives them a whole extra year to graduate. For juniors, again, it gives them a whole extra year to graduate, and they have that fixed rate. Student semesters begin after high school. If you have a dually enrolled student, they're not in the plan. It's when they've graduated, then they would enter the plan. This is designated tuition, so it's not going to affect whether you're an out-of-state, in-state, Tier 2, because everybody gets charged designated tuition. So they're all going to be participating in this, okay? And we don't have any semester grade hour requirements or GPA requirements on this. So we don't have to check that either to keep them in a plan or not keep them in a plan. It's not like a scholarship. The 12 semester plan, it begins again on their first enrollment when they first get here. The existing MSU freshmen and sophomores will be placed in the 12 semester plan. So again, our sophomores are going to have the benefit of an extra year. Again, provides the benefit of a frozen tuition rate for the 12 semesters, and tuition rates in semester 13 and beyond will fall under that new.
Marilyn, can I ask a technical question on this point, and it kind of relates to this piece of the slide? Every year, we're gonna have a new rate, correct? So, this is really the only year we have a 6 and a 9. Every year after this, from this point forward, a new reset will start at the beginning of that year. So if a junior comes in, they come in under
The new transfer rate.
transfer state.
Right.
Okay.
We're having discussions right now about what do we do if someone hasn't been here for 5 years and they get here in 3 years from now, and the juniors have already worked through and the seniors have already worked through. What do? They were an existing student, so are we going to put them in at the new freshman rate, or do we try to do something that they're in a junior or senior rate? You know, they're in a further
if it
down
falls
the road.
off,
Yeah.
it would have to be at that freshman rate, don't you think? I mean, if it is falling out, you know.
Yeah, but we'll remember, you'll have, the freshman rates are gonna keep rotating through, right?
Right.
So the freshmen this year will become sophomores next year, and then juniors the year after that, and then seniors the year after that. So if I get somebody coming in as a junior that was an existing student from before, they're not
But
a
if
transfer student.
If their time hasn't expired, it should default back to what their starting rate was, right?
Right, but let's say their time's expired, they were from 5 years before. Do you slot them into a junior?
No, I
Or
think
do you
you've
say,
got it,
no,
no.
sorry, you're
think-
gonna be
I
as a
think you've
freshman
got,
coming
because the
in.
incentive here is to get done.
That's right.
It's to get done.
Stay in school.
Stay in school and finish.
Right.
Marilyn, the slide before, the last bullet point, I wanna make sure I get this straight. If you use up your 12 semesters and don't graduate, then you go back, you get to the new freshman
You're gonna be at the new freshman rate
the next
for
semester.
1 year.
For 1 year.
And then after that, you'll be at the next new freshman rate for another
Okay.
year.
All right.
So you don't get another 12 semesters guaranteed.
It's not a reset.
No, it's not you're just gonna keep floating to the newest
What if
rate.
they stay and they're working on their masters?
If they're one of these, if they haven't used up their 12 semesters, and they
What
wanna
if
go on
they
their
have?
masters, then they get to continue at that same rate. If they finished, then they're gonna have to start back again at the new freshman rate.
If they graduated 4 years and then go into a master's plan program, they go back to the freshman rate.
They'll go back to the freshman rate. Now, if they come in, let's say we got sophomores in this 12 semester plan, if they graduate in 2.5 years, they still have part of those 12 semesters, they can continue on with their masters and still have their frozen rate.
Be curious though, I think that one's one we ought to think about going forward. I'd be curious to know what others are gonna be doing on that, because, you know, there's a lot of programs evolving today where you have to have that master's. And I would hate to penalize students because they have to have a master's by saying, you know, you're not done, we're gonna have to reset your tuition.
Yeah, I mean, that could be possibly something we look at, is
Yeah.
if you wanna continue on with
Yep.
no interruption,
Yep.
you'll give you that extra 2
I think we
years
should
at
look at
that
that.
frozen
On
rate.
the
That may
other-
be a great incentive.
On the other hand, having a level premium for more than 4 years is pretty risky.
Spoken like a true insurance guy.
I mean, we fight it every year.
Yeah.
If they didn't finish in 4, the way I understood it, we reset their tuition.
Back to the freshman, the new
That's right,
freshman rate
and then
coming
they
in.
continue on at that rate.
No, they only continue on for 1 year until it gets the new. It's an academic rate for that academic year.
That would make sense.
And then
It resets
if they
every
still
year.
don't graduate in that academic year, then they're going to follow the next academic year.
Because if we tried to keep up with that, it would be too difficult to try
That's right.
and monitor
And it
that.
stretches out.
You're right, okay.
And two, I mean, we're trying to get them through. We want them to graduate. We don't want to give them incentives to say, stay any longer. But I like the idea if you go for a graduate program. Now, we haven't figured that into our rates, and let me get to that next. is how do we figure out the rates?
Is this what we discussed? You said this is gonna be an accounting nightmare?
Yes.
Potentially,
Yeah.
it could be if we had both variable and fixed.
Yeah.
This is not as much of a accounting nightmare as if we had a variable plan, a fixed plan, or just a variable plan. I mean,
And I'll tell you-
this is just tiering it, and I think you just have to put them in buckets, and that's a lot
Cohorts.
simpler.
Yeah, we're calling cohorts, you're in a cohort. A&M just passed theirs, they have a different rate, different fixed rate, and it is mandated, everybody's gotta be on it, for freshmen, for sophomores, for juniors, for seniors, and depending on which college you're in.
Whoa.
So they have
Wow.
probably 75 different rates.
Yeah.
And how they keep up with it, I don't know how to do it.
Well,
We try to
that's-
keep it as simple as possible, not just for us, accounting wise, but for parents and students to know, what am I gonna pay? You know, when you have all those different rates, I mean.
That's why we have Aggie jokes. I went to Texas. I've got a granddaughter. I've got a granddaughter there now.
So is that one of these?
Yeah. So what we looked at in order, and remember, the plan is not supposed to cost the institution money. So like if we did allow somebody to extend beyond the 12, 9, 6 semesters for graduates, we haven't figured that in. What we try to do is look at consumer price, higher education price, our designated tuition history, and then what other people are doing. Primarily when we looked at our rates, though, that we wanted to go up, we were trying to protect ourselves against the consumer price index. So all we want to do, we don't want to make money necessarily, we just don't want to lose money over the deal. So we're trying to go up enough that would protect the institution from consumer, you know, just our cost of living at our institution.
The mandate from the state does not, I mean, going back to that whole concept of a master's program, I mean, the mandate from the state doesn't penalize us or penalize the student for going up on a price after they graduate with their baccalaureate, right?
Right, the only thing the state statute requires is new freshmen and transfers.
Okay.
That's it. So we're
So
adding
we have the opportunity to
sophomores,
explore
juniors,
this some more.
seniors, yeah. I mean, we're adding all that other, as trying to help our students out. So that's what we used, and we used about a 2.5% CPI rate. The last few years, it's been right around 2. So with inflation and things, you know, we're thinking it may go up to 2.5. So that's kind of where we put our consumer price index, and we have to go up enough that we'll go up more than 2.5, because then we'll be higher than we need to be the first couple of years, but then the back years of this is where we have to, that extra pays for. We'll lose money on the back side, but we'll gain money on the front side, if that makes sense. So we're trying to get an average of what we need to collect over the 4 years in order to be whole. Okay? And I could show you the sheets on it, I just didn't want to, you know, make it more complicated. Other universities, Sam Houston State, they're making an optional program, and they're, like Dr. Rogers was saying, they're going up 12% on their tuition, $195 to $218.40 per semester credit hour. Stephen F. Austin, they're going up 13.9%, 158 to 180. A&M, as I mentioned to you, is mandatory tuition and fee increase of 6%. With designated tuition by itself 9.9, so they're going from 126.55 to 139. The other thing they did at A&M is they had 7,600 course fees that they're rolling into their designated tuition, and they're adding an additional 20% on top of that for the set-asides. You know, scholarships set-asides were mandated to do, so their students are paying a lot more because they're trying to clean up. And we've already done that. We already cleaned up our course fees and added it as an instructional enhancement fee by college. They're also taking they created a university advancement fee, so they collapsed some fees. We did that too, the university services fee. So I think we're actually kind of ahead of A&M in a lot of the things that we've been doing on our tuition fees. So for us, remember, we have the 3 tiers: seniors and graduate students, juniors, and then sophomores, new students, and transfers. So the seniors, we want to increase the designated tuition 2.2%. Remember, it's only 6 semesters or 2 years. It'd be $111.50 to $114. Juniors, we would go up 4.5%. That's a 3-year rate. And sophomores and the new students would go up 6.7, and that would be frozen for 12 semesters. So they'd be at 119. So you can see our designated tuition rates are much lower than the ones you saw on the previous slide. So with that, the other rate we would like to propose going up, because as you noticed on the seniors, we're only going up 2.2%, which really doesn't cover CPI for 2 years. So the other one we kind of want to marry with this is the university services fee, and we'd like to propose an increase of up to $54.25. So if we add this to what we already proposed, we're talking about a 4.5% increase on the seniors and the graduate students. Juniors would be a 5.5%, and then sophomores is a 6.5%. Sophomores and new students 6.5%. But remember, a chunk of that is frozen, so they won't go up anymore for the 4 years, 3 years, or 2 years. Okay?
Marilyn?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to ask many questions. What was our last rate increase, tuition increase?
We raised nothing last year.
I know, but last time we did, what did we raise?
On designated tuition, what did we go up on designated?
3.95 total.
3.95 total. So designated tuition, I'm not sure what that was.
3.95 for the total, their total budget. Less than 4% tuition and
So
fees.
3.95% a year ago, nothing last year, and then this year would be these 4.5, 5.5, 6.5. So again, that's where the students went, well, if CPI is 2% to 2.5%, this is pretty reasonable. And so this is a chart to just show you right now, if you're taking 15 hours, it's $3,839 or so. And if you are a senior and a graduate student, you'll end up paying $4,013. It's an increase of about $175. If you're a junior, you'll pay $4,000. It's a $212 increase. And if you're a sophomore or a new freshman, you'll pay $4,088. So there's not really a large difference between the 3 groups, and it's $250,000. The biggest thing, again, that I wanted to show you, though, designated tuition is the biggest chunk of this, and it's frozen. So even though they're going up this much down here, this piece is not going to ever go up for them during their guaranteed rate. Okay, so that gives them some protection. Down here shows you, oops, we'll go back again.
Marilyn, could you go back? I don't want to unsell this. You've done a great job. Really what caught my attention, because when I came in to look at the presentation originally, I just didn't think we could make it work. But the students really caught on fast, and I think I did too. For $250 for a 15-hour schedule, a semester, you're picking up a guaranteed 4-year tuition rate.
Almost half of it, the $1,785 of the $4,000 is guaranteed not to change.
Yeah.
So, Marilyn, let me ask a question, because one of the things that when I've looked at this, I've been really concerned about is that we don't come back to the students at a later time and say, oops. Because we do have that latitude with some of these fees, and I guess one of the things that I want to be careful about here, because you made the comment, the student said, is this enough? I've got to ask that question, is this enough? I mean, I hear the CPI and I hear all the other things, and I really think you guys have given this a ton of thought, and I really like it. But I'm a little concerned about, have we done enough? I mean, you look at these fees here, you look at, you know, the student union fee, the rec fee, the student service, athletic, etc. I mean, is there any latitude on any of these fees that we could think about and do it on the front end? Don't wait until, 3 years down the road and go, gosh, you know what, we may have missed the mark on this. Because I think one of the things the students really will appreciate is if we come to them and say, look, this is really not changing. And you know, we're gonna lose a lot of credibility if 2 years from now, we come to them and say, oops.
Well, the one that is really very flexible is that university services fee.
Okay.
So if in a year down the road, we say, for whatever reason, I mean, I think we've done our budget homework.
Yep.
But if for some, you know, reason something happens that we need to go up, then that would be your back door that you could go back to the students and say, we need to go up on this fee right here. This is the flexible fee that allows it to be used for any of your services.
Are there areas in the university like athletics? I know athletics, we're constantly struggling, trying to figure out, you know.
So let me walk through these real quick.
Okay.
State tuition, that's fixed by the legislature, and that's
Right.
$50 a semester credit hour, so we don't have any latitude in what that is. University designated tuition, we've already talked about that. Student union center fee
They vote on
is
that.
a vote,
Yep.
referendum. They've got to vote on it, and we have to go to the legislature
Right.
and get it statutorily changed.
Right.
Rec center fee is the same thing.
Okay.
Student center fee, I think you can go up 10%, is that right, Keith?
I think we're capped.
Are we
I
capped
think we're
already?
capped.
Okay. Athletic fee, the board can take that, it can either be a referendum, or the board can go up 10%.
Okay.
Okay? So the board
10%
can.
of that
That's
fee?
current rate. If it's
Okay.
current rate, which is $10 a semester credit hour, max $120. So it's capped once a student reaches 12 hours, that's all, they only pay $120. If they take 15 hours, they're still paying $120. But you could go up 10% on that athletic fee. And then the instructional enhancement fee, that's the other one that's by college. And you know, if a college has additional needs for equipment or instruction that they're not feeling like they're getting the money for, and they have evidence that we can bring to the board and say we can show you why they need more money, that would be something we could go up on there. Again, this is an average, and that fee is anywhere from, I don't know what the range is, $18 to $50, $18 to $15.
So could we do that? I mean,
Also, the student service fee is not capped yet. It's not
Not-
capped. The cap of the student service fee is $250. So that one's not capped, and the rec center cap is $130. So we can go up 10%.
10% on those, and does
So
that
there's-
need a referendum to go up, or we can just raise it
No,
10?
as long as you do less than 10%.
Yeah, so those two.
so there's some latitude to
Mhm.
do. What I'm getting to here is, I don't want to do this twice. I want to do this right the first time. I think that the proposal's really a good one, but what I'd like to make sure that we do is that we make sure we've covered all those bases. Because, I mean, we you know, picking on athletic for a minute, I mean, we're constantly struggling trying to meet budget there. And, you know, I don't necessarily want to have to come back to the students later and say, hey, you know what, you know, that fixed tuition thing we talked about, well, we're going to raise this. Why don't we look at it now? Why don't we think about it now?
And right behind that, Sean, am I thinking the wrong way here? And I'm all for this, but if we, since I've been here for 3 years, we've raised tuition twice. We skipped last year, so you know, just about every year we're raising it. Last time we raised it 3 or 4%.
3.95%.
So, assuming a freshman starts, and if we didn't have that program, we would escalate all the way up for his 4 years. Is this percent, 6%, to me seems low.
Well,
That's what I'm
remember, you're
driving
trying
at.
to.
Yeah, that's exactly it, yeah.
You're trying to, on the university designated tuition, and I can show you the sheets. What we did is we assumed a 2%, right, 2%, 2.5% inflation rate. And we said, okay, if the designated tuition you pay today goes up 2.5%, and then the next year goes up 2.5%, and then the next year goes up 2.5%, and then the next year goes up 2.5%. How much have you paid in total for those 4 years? And then we took that amount and averaged it. Okay, so we said, so therefore, if we charge you the average amount up front for the 4 years, the institution's gonna come out to be in the same place, but you know what your rate, what you're gonna pay every year then. right? So we're not out anything, and we did a 2.5% rate. So on the university designated tuition, that's what we did.
Okay.
And then we added in the university services fee to supplement that.
So what I'm suggesting is, I love this. I think this is a great plan, and I'm all for it. And I think at its core, this is something we really need to do. All I'm asking is that the administration take one more look.
Okay.
And make sure that, like, because there's not been enough time. We don't want to do anything without vetting it further with the students. I don't want to do that. I don't want us to sit here as a board today and come in and say 6.5, not enough. We're raising it to 7.5. I want to be able to give it some intelligent thought and possibly come back in May and tweak it. Can we do that? Is that possible? I mean, we could approve the core.
We couldn't change it too much because financial aid package.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just tweak here, tweak there, saying, okay, we've looked at this again, we've talked to our students again, and this is acceptable, this is good. Or you come back and say, we're done, this is it, we're good. We feel really good about this. I'm okay with that too.
From a financial aid perspective, I would say minor tweaks are okay, but if you get into too big,
Define a minor tweak.
$1 or less. Per semester credit hour. Maybe total of $50 or less, but you wouldn't want to have to go repackage everyone.
Formula, I think it's an okay formula, but man, that seems.
But $1 is $150,000 roughly, right?
That's right.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, that's a lot of money.
It's a big money. That's a lot of money for us.
And it impacts every student at this
It's just when
university.
we're with these students that are coming in, we are trying to, starting in March, award the scholarships, and in April start packaging.
Okay.
So we're going to take the scholarships, we're going to take everything and start telling students what they're going to get, and try to get these, recruit these freshmen. So if we postpone doing this until May, financial aid doesn't know how to package
But
things.
I get that.
Yeah.
My biggest fear right now is we've done a fantastic job of communicating this. I really have. I mean, the students are now aware of it, faculty's aware of it. I mean, I don't want to take that away. I don't want to take that away. That's my point. If we're going to do anything further with this, then they need to have an opportunity to voice an opinion. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, sure.
But I also don't want to stop the ball rolling. We need to get this approved. We need to move forward.
Yes.
And I get that. I'm just asking, can we take a look at, and to your point, Keith, tweaking it is all I'm talking about, because $1 is a lot of money in this scenario.
It is, right.
It's $150,000.
And we would not, at that level, it would not affect financial aid
Their
packaging.
individual
So,
packages, yeah.
Okay.
So if
That's
they-
all I'm asking
yeah,
is that
so-
we do that. I mean, that's the only thing.
So
I
if
just wanna make
financial aid
sure.
knew that if this was approved by the board today, that they could use it in April, and then we wanted to
Yeah.
tweak it in May, I think that's okay for them.
Well, I'm not even saying we want to tweak it. I'm just asking you guys, as I look at this schedule and see all these fees on here, and knowing some of these areas we've kind of fallen short, like athletic fee is specifically for athletics. I know we've struggled on occasion trying to meet that budget and so on and so forth. And I don't want to take money away from any other spots. But my point is, let's make sure we take a hard look at all these fees and that we've done what we need to do to do that. And I don't want to go back to the students a year from now or 2 years from now or 3 years from now and say, hey, we're going to raise this fee because we need to do this.
You know, if I sit down and write, what are the potential positives of this? And I'll try to get this is just my argument. Okay. We're a university of 6,000. We know how many credit hours we produce. If we raise tuition 3% every year, that's a pretty big increase on the students, but it's not much for the students. I mean, it's not much for the university. It's a pretty big increase if you did that each year on the students, but it doesn't bring that much income into the university. Additionally, I really hope that the idea to students, and it seemed to be the other night they caught on, and to parents and those people that pay. If you leave this university and go to a more expensive building, or if you leave this university, you're going to lose that guaranteed 4 year of tuition. Right. I hope it helps retention. Okay. Now, I also can look at this, and I don't want to step on any of the toes of the staff here, but there's some, we can do what you're saying, because we can look at, for example, one of the rec center fee or some of the others, and we know how we're doing and what we can anticipate. Okay, Keith, you know, I mean, we can pretty much look out there and feel pretty safe with that. Now, I want everybody to really understand this. I probably should be quiet about it. There are a couple, though, that there are things going on that are uncertain, but they are not big dollar things, and it's strange you should bring it up. Athletics is one of them. Whatever happens to the Lone Star Conference, and it's going to be there. But you saw McMurray pulled out. You think, well, what does that have to do with Midwestern? Well, it means that Charlie's going to have more trouble scheduling, and we probably are going to have to travel a little further. Now, I'm not talking about more $1 an hour or 50 cents an hour or something like that, but there's some things out there that are unknowns that are we need to be conservative about, but we need to be concerned about, because there's some of those fees up there. We know what's going to happen to them. They're not going to change. We're making enough money to run and pay the electricity and clean up the rec center and so forth. But then there's a couple of fees where there's some unknown things that could happen to us that would put a little bit of a squeeze on us. My point is, though, I don't see anything that's going to be big that we'd have to come in here, and I'm with you, I don't want to nickel and dime the students, because that's the job here, the sale is, and everybody gets it, it's you're paying this year a little bit more to fix that tuition. I think that's a big deal. But still, there's a couple of those things that are not as certain as others.
And I think that's
but
my
none of them are
point.
big.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would it be better to put that dollar in right now as opposed to tweaking it? Because no matter how you tweak it, it's still not going to be the same as what they agreed to if it goes up during that 4-year period.
You know, this is a board, I'm sympathetic with that. We've been to the student government and we told them this is what it's going to be. I don't know.
Jesse, that's why I'm suggesting what I'm suggesting is we've gone to the students and said, this is what we're proposing. I don't want to change that.
I don't think we should now.
What I'm suggesting is we take one more look to see if we can do that. Talk to the students one more time, and let's go ahead and make that investment of time to determine if it's the right thing to do right now. And they may say, no, we're waiting. I don't mean, but at the end of the day, it's our decision. I get that, but I want to be sensitive to that. So,
I
anyway,
think you've got it.
I'm not going to say anymore. That's just me.
I don't see a big thing that could hit us in this plan in 4 years. Now, I see some things that could be tweaked because of necessity, just because we've got, I gave you one example of that, and it's not more than 50 cents or 75 cents or $1 an hour will give us enough to balance the budget of that category. But I don't see
So if you'd like, I could go in and we can, if the athletic fee is one we're considering, go up 10% or $1, we can redo this chart for you and have it for you in the morning. To see what the percentage is, how much it would change.
No, I think that's what I'm asking you to do.
And then take it to the students.
Just talk with the students and get their read on it. If we went up $1 or $1.20, whatever it is this what it is? I don't want to change what the students have seen and said. We like this. This is good. Because I like this. This is good.
Well, what do you say to the students if you go back to them next time?
Say the board got together and there is, we want to make sure we don't come back to you 2 or 3 times in this 4-year period again and try to do something if something comes up. We want to make sure you're covered for this flat tuition.
Could I comment on our message tonight? If I look at your last column, I take the state tuition, and that's 18% of your 4,000. Okay. The tuition you're proposing is 44%. You're 1,785. Right. So I just want to make sure our message is right. What we're saying to my father, who would have been an elector, he would think we're saying we're not going to raise what you're paying for the next 4 years. But I don't think we're saying that. I think we're saying 44% of what you pay we're not going to raise because that's what we control. Everything else outside the state is 38%.
Exactly.
Right. But I'm uncomfortable with us thinking, I don't think that's what we mean, but I'm uncomfortable with us thinking, well, we're going to call the 40 4% flat for 4 years, and we're going to compensate by raising the 38%, because our message is going to be you're paying a fixed rate. Well, we need to make our message clear. The 44%, and it's a little different for each year.
44% is right.
That's the fixed part.
Right, and that's why I say the rest of it, depending on if
Will
there's a
change
student
every year.
referendum or we need to go up on those are gonna be
But
as,
that will change every year.
that
will it
may or
not?
may or may not change.
Will not? Okay.
We can't change, let's go down that category again. Your numbers are good. We
State
can't
tuition.
change state tuition.
Right.
They're gonna tell us what that is.
Yes.
We couldn't change student union, student center fee without our student referendum board
Okay.
approval.
Right, and
then
legislative
probably a state,
change, yeah.
would take state action.
It would take the legislature.
It'd take the legislature to change that one. If you go down that thing, there's only two.
These two you could change, this one athletic, we're not at the
But
top
there's
of rec, but
limits.
there's
There's a
student
limit
fee
on
and
that
there's a
one, see.
limit.
There's a limit on that of 10% out of $10.
Okay, so it is almost 70 or
It's all-
80% that we do control that we were not changing. Okay, that's a good message. Yeah.
But the
That's a good
bottom
message.
two are.
Yeah, this one can change if the colleges can show they have a need. And then university services fee, like I said, that covers a lot of different services at the institution and can be used for many different things.
I would argue we need that, I hate to call it a backdoor, we need that. Betty, I think, will agree with me on this. There's some things that go on in our college and disciplines, such as cost of chemicals or such as cost of samples in biology or something that can go up, like the price of gasoline.
Yeah, this
or
one
something.
too,
But we'd have
instructional
to-
enhancement fee also pays for your graduate
But those
teaching
2 or 3 are
assistants.
very small.
Yeah.
They are.
That's not the whole
So,
reason. how it can-
Linwood, that's exactly what I'm talking about, is what you're driving at right now, is the more we can make this
fixed,
the better off we are. And that's why I'm saying, if there's $1 to be gleaned from this now, then we should do it, and we should talk about it and get it done.
I think it's important to realize, and I think I'm correct with this statement, correct me if I'm wrong, is this is for a year 14-15. 15-16, we can go up.
We can.
Each, so
That's
that
correct.
if
So
we're
the new
seeing this
freshmen
disaster
That's correct.
coming,
That's a good point.
we can start bringing that up. I mean, we have latitude here
Yeah,
each
no, I
year.
agree with that.
Right,
But-
right, the new freshman rate
Understand.
increases. Okay,
But I just don't want, I just again want them to understand, and this is exactly what you're saying in a different way than I am. We've got to be able to, the more we can get this committed, that 80%, the better off we are, and our credibility is
Agree.
good. And but I love this plan. I want to be clear about that. I think this plan's well
I
thought
do
out,
too, and
well
you've made
done.
me feel much better by your comments, and I feel really good about it. I just don't want to put the message that it's never going to change. There are some things like the fees that have to be changed, and we can't control the state.
Right, right. And I'm agreeing with Chair is that I think we need to tweak, look at it.
With the idea that as much as we can not go up in future
Yes.
years, we want to try to do that.
For the next 4 years.
But
this
to Keith's
freshman
concern, because I can see Keith down there with this concerned face, he's going to make commitments to people in financial aid. He has to have something in his hand.
Right, right.
He can't be hamstrung by that.
That's a good
So,
point. I agree.
Okay.
Can I say something? I want to disagree with I want to throw an alternative out as far as the tweaking right now, because I think we got to do something. We can't wait till May. We can wait till in the morning, but we can't wait till May. And it goes back to the point you made just a minute ago, Mac. You know, if we adopt this today, which I think would work fine, and then in the next year we decide that we are going to be a little bit short, you make it up with the incoming 15 freshmen. And then if we're short then, you make it up with the incoming 16 freshmen. That's where your tweaks are.
That's right.
We've already told the student body we're going to do this. And I don't think we go back on our word at this point. I think we go with this, and then if we're short later, we catch up later.
I agree. Even if something goes wrong, we can fix it next year. I agree.
Yeah.
And I didn't go ahead and say it, I will, since we're being very honest with this thing. I made the point about raising tuition 3%, and I said we're a school of 6,000, emphasize how many credit hours that is. It's a pretty big increase on the students, but doesn't generate a lot of money for us to operate the university on. the strange thing about it, this plan does. Now, here is the thing. Our budget is so dictated by new students. If we get 50 new students taking 15 hours a semester, that generates a lot more income than raising the tuition on individual students. So I'm agreeing with you.
Shelby.
We could wait till next year. I think we're safe till next year, Sean.
Shelby,
Shelby, what you think?
I would have preferred this as a freshman because even though I know tuition didn't go up last year, I felt like I was still paying more money. And I don't know if that was because I'm taking more hours or what, but I would have liked this option. But I don't know what will happen to me whenever I just have one semester left next year. Like, will I just pay this rate once
You're
and be
gonna
done
pay
with
that
it?
senior graduate
Okay.
rate.
Or go to graduate school.
And then you go to graduate school.
There you go, you got it solved.
There you go.
Look how small that increase is though. See, if we
I know
just sat
it's
here
not.
and said, well, we're gonna go with the variable pay and how much do we need to raise tuition? We were hoping, when we were thinking like that, we thought we couldn't get by with less than 3.5 or a little bit less than 4%. So you'd be better off, if I understand your point.
How, if you're gonna take, let's say you're taking 18 hours a semester, how does this fit?
It just multiplies. State tuition is a $50 per credit hour. University designated tuition would be the 114 times 18 or the 116.50 or the 119.
Okay.
So this is just.
Student union center fee, I think that's the flat rate. That's,
Yeah.
you won't pay any more than 120. Student service fee that's the maxed out rate.
250 is.
250 is. Athletic fee, that's the max rate. Instructional enhancement fee, it depends on what courses you're taking, but that would probably go up because it's based on a per credit hour. And then your university services fee is $54.25 per semester credit hour, so that would go up for the extra class you're taking.
So with 12, it'd be the same way?
12, you would go down, obviously, but some of those are fixed. So rec
Okay.
fee, you're gonna pay the 120, athletic fee, you still pay 120. But if you took 9, then your athletic fee would actually go down, and the rec fee, I think, is that flat or is that?
It's flat.
It's flat, no matter which you're here, you pay the whole thing. Student service fee goes down. So, yeah, it's not quite perfect linear, but it's pretty close to it.
I commend your team on a well thought out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
we
a lot
went
of
through
work
many
in that.
we went through many iterations, believe me. And Keith was very good. He gave us some good suggestions because at first we had just 2 tiers, and he said, no, you really need to break it into a little bit more for the seniors. So we broke it into the 3, putting the sophomores in with the freshmen. So he gave us some good feedback, and our executive team looked it over, and I think we started at 2, and then we moved up to 2.5, just to kind of protect ourselves in the future. And to your point, we don't want to short ourselves. So we've had many iterations to get to this point.
Good plan.
Yeah, I agree.
Like it.
I hope the benefits from it too are retention and, not dropping out of school, dropping back in school, and finishing in 4 years. It would really be a boon to students.
So one of the other things we showed real quick to the students is, again, none of the increase will be used for the master planning, the construction projects. Those are different source of funds. We'll use increases for faculty and staff salary increases. We have health insurance increases that we believe will be coming down the pike with the Affordable Care Act. We have our insurance through the state, so it's determined by ERS at the state level, so we don't have much choice in bidding it out or anything. We have to pay what they say that we have to pay. IT, we want to continue to provide the cutting edge technology, expanded bandwidth. Eureka, we're going to add more undergraduate research to that program, and then scholarships, obviously we want to continue expanding our scholarship program. And so that's it.
Good job.
Thank you.
Job well done.
No, can't do
And your
Can't
staff.
clap primarily.
Okay.
Good job.
Before we have further discussion, can I have a motion to approve the items as presented?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Again, I'd like to, Dr. Rogers and I chatted about this a couple weeks ago. I've had mixed emotions. I've asked people in the community, both parents and also students, and not a negative comment from any of them. Everybody was really positive about it. So I was sold on the idea. Yeah. Again, Dr. Foley, excellent job by you.
Well, I'd like to also commend Valerie Maxwell, because she's really the one that was crunching the numbers behind the scenes and helped get us to this point. So she did a lot of work on this too.
Super. All right. Since no further discussion, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Again, thank you so much. And, all right. Mr. Chair, that concludes the business of the Finance Committee, sir.
Perfect. Thank you. Sam, you still on the line? Okay.
I am, sir.
So as a reminder, I think you and Debbie had talked to make it easier on you. I'm going to chair this committee for you. Still okay with that?
I'm totally fine with that. Thanks for doing that.
Here we go. The Audit and Compliance and Management Review Committee will now come to order. Members of this committee joining me today are Mr. Sanchez, Ms. Burks, Mr. Engelman, and Mr. Gregg. First item is item 1474, and it's approval of the minutes of the committee meeting held November 7th, 2013. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, they stand approved as presented. Tiffany, are you still on the line?
Still here.
Perfect. Item 1475 is a report on audit activities. We're glad to welcome Mike Taylor as a new internal auditor. Mike, please tell us a little about yourself and give us an update on audit activities since you began.
Well, I tried to think of a good auditor joke, and I thought most of you probably think the auditor is the joke. So.
Hey. I am one.
I understand. I am one too. I do want to thank the board. My offices have been updated. They look great. We've got everything that I need to move forward has been given openly. So I really want to say special thank you to the administration and to the board. I come from an audit background, Deloitte & Touche, Arthur Anderson, even some not-for-profit. I spent a lot of years as controller too, so I do understand that we're pulling your hair out. Chris still has some, but that'll work its way out. From the area, if you don't know me, if we haven't spoken yet, from this area, so very excited to be back. I moved back 3 years ago with my family. We live in Henrietta, raising my kids in the same or similar environment to what I grew up in, and close to grandparents. So very excited for that. Currently, to bring you up to speed, it is just me. I'm the only internal auditor here currently at MSU, and I am working on setting up what I believe to be best practices and really looking at the internal audit function from the ground up. And in order to do that, I'm needing some help, and so I've reached out. One of the universities that have been very, very helpful to me so far has been Stephen F. Austin University in Nacogdoches, and I am traveling down there later this month to actually sit down and go through, kind of get myself up to speed for higher ed, kind of look at some of the hot topics, things that are front of mind and things that are important to this university as well. I think there's a lot of similarities between us. They have a board of regents. They kind of operate in a similar environment and not that much different in size. So I think there's a lot of things I can gain from that, as well as I'm traveling to another couple of conferences later this fiscal year that will be also very beneficial, hosted by the Association of College and University Auditors and then the Texas Association of College and University Auditors. Right now, what we're currently doing is compiling information for risk assessment. We're looking at the entity level assessment as well as the account level assessment, and trying to get my arms around the world as it exists here at Midwestern State University, and those will be coming up, and then just kind of a summary. I believe that internal audit is more than just providing independent or objective assurance. That could be outsourced with a similar result. I think that what makes internal auditors valuable in this environment is the value-added services. Once we become familiar and understand the processes of the university, I believe that we can add
suggestions and value back to management and the board. And I think that's the goal here, is that the internal audit department should help meet the strategic goals of the university, and that is our intent. All right, so if there's any questions, feel free to ask, but currently that's where we're moving. In the May board meeting, you will be presented, I will present you with a remaining year audit plan, and you will see that at the next board meeting.
Thanks, Mike.
Any questions?
How great is that? An account level assessment and an entity level assessment. I love it.
Wow, it just gave me
It just gives me goosebumps. That's audit talk there, man. That's good.
I can't even spell it.
Audit talk in words. That's awesome. Awesome. Any questions of Mike? Okay, this item is presented as a point of information only and no action is necessary. Item 1476, contract management activities. Barry, please tell us about our contract management activities.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, just for the last quarter of 2013, October, November, December, we processed approximately 102 contracts, and that would be Steve Shelley, Director of Purchasing Contract Management, and Tracy Nichols, the Contracts Coordinator that y'all work with. But they processed, together we processed that many contracts, average each month about 34. For all of 2013, we processed a total of 426 contracts, which is a little over 35 a month. Compared to 2002, we were only active 6 months in 2012 whenever we started placing contracts in the repository. That year, we did a total of 239 for almost 40 a month average. Altogether, in the 19 months that we've had the software, we've placed approximately 813 contracts in the repository. And again, we're averaging right around 40, 41 a month. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions or comments for Barry? Barry. Item is presented for our information only. Item 1477, policy manual change. The administration recommends changes to the wording of policy 4.194 dealing with the public access defibrillation program. Dr. Lamb, please tell us about these recommended changes, please.
Yes, this is just an update to our automated external defibrillator policy, essentially, and it's just updating titles to reflect some title changes that we've had in recent years and the locations of the devices.
Okay. Could I have a motion to approve this item as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Aye.
That concludes the business to come before this committee. Okay, so we do have an executive session we need to do. I'm going to suggest something here that we start this evening. If we don't finish, we'll finish tomorrow, okay? Because there's some preliminary things that we want to go ahead and make sure we cover. And we've got Tiffany on the phone, and we need to make sure we get her input on a couple of things. So the committee of the whole will now reconvene. The Board of Regents will go into executive session to discuss item 1444, University President's Performance Compensation and Contract Review. Item 1445C, deliberations regarding a prospective gift or donation, is allowed by Texas Government Code Section 551.